With that, I'm going to welcome everyone to the Town of Wakefield's Board of Appeals meetings for Wednesday, December 13th, 2023. I'll remind everyone that the meeting's being recorded. It will be available for replay within a couple of days on the town's website. I'm going to start by taking attendance. Chip Tarbell,
Here.
Jim McBain,
Here.
Joe Pride,
Here.
Greg McIntosh,
Here.
Nikki Feely,
Here.
Kasumi Humphreys.
Yeah.
My name's Tom Lucy. Obviously, I'm here. And for the record, I will note that member Dave Hatfield will be unable to join us tonight. With that, Joe Pride's our clerk. Joe, I'm going to ask you to read the call of the meeting.
Will do, Tom. Thanks. Consistent with the governor's orders, extend certain provisions of the open meeting law. Every effort will be made to allow the public to view and or listen to this meeting in real time. If you do not have a camera or microphone on your computer, you may use the following dial-in number: 1-301-715-8592. Meeting ID 836-4289-0437. Passcode 753-851. Please use only dial-in or computer and not both, as audio feedback will distort the meeting. This meeting will be audio and video recorded in compliance with the American Disability Act. This location is accessible to people with disabilities. Wakefield provides reasonable accommodations and or language assistance free of charge upon request. If you are a person with a disability and require information or materials in an alternate format, or if you require any other accommodation, please contact the town's disability coordinator, William Renault, town engineer, at 781-246-6308. As far in advance of the event as possible, every effort will be made to grant your request. Advance notification will enable the town to make reasonable arrangements to remove an accessibility barrier for you. 1. Continued hearings. 2. 24-21, 24-22, 24-23. Victor Passacantelli Jr. and Christine Passacantelli. Application for a special permit under Article 4, Section 190-22A 1F of the Wakefield zoning bylaw to add an accessory apartment to a single-family dwelling. Application for variance under Article 10, Section 190-66, section seeking a variance from the requirements of Section 190-22A 1F of the Wakefield zoning bylaw related to a proposed accessory apartment. Application for determination and or finding with respect to a continuation and extension of non-conforming uses under Article 9, Section 190-50 of the Wakefield zoning bylaw, proposing to construct an addition onto the existing dwelling. The property is shown as map 9, lot parcel 0OL3 of the assessor's map, and is located at 16 West Park Drive, 324-24. Town of Wakefield Permanent Building Committee. Application for a party aggrieved for review of a decision made by the building inspector. The applicant is appealing the decision from the building inspector pursuant to MGLC 40A, Section A, and Article 10, Section 190-65 of the bylaw, to allow the construction of a new Wakefield Memorial High School, including the new building, structures, associated driveways, parking, walkways, athletic fields and facilities, utilities, and stormwater management. The property is shown as map 40A, parcel lot 17AA, map 40, parcel lot 17A18, map 40, parcel lot 017, map 40A, parcel lot 17C, map 40B, parcel lot 017 of the assessor's map, and is located at 30 through 64 Farm Street, Board of Appeals.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate that. Before we get going, we've had a couple requests for continuances, as is our practice. I'll read those into the record. First one is from Attorney Brian McGrail, a letter dated December 13th, 2023. regarding Mira LLC Sky Group Investments, 1 Audubon Road, Wakefield, case numbers 2366, 2367, and 2368. Dear Mr. Chair, please continue this matter until your meeting of February 14th, 2024, and that the client is in the process of changing building designs at the corporate level, which they desire to utilize in Wakefield, and the plans will not be available until that time. They now have concept plans on the new building style, but they would like to complete the full architectural plans before they start moving forward. The current extension for the board to render and or file a decision is through January 31st, 2024. Please let this letter confirm that the applicant has agreed to extend the time for the board to render and or file any decisions until March 31st, 2024.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue this hearing till our February 14th hearing and accept the offer of the applicant to extend the time frame to March 31st.
Seconded.
Okay, regular voting members and Greg, Chip,
Yes.
Joe, Jim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Matter is continued to February 14th. Another letter dated December 13th from Attorney Brian McGrail regarding A&E Realty Trust, 460 through 466 and 472 Main Street, Wakefield. Case numbers 2370, 2371, 2372. Dear Mr. Chair, please continue this matter until your meeting on January 10th, 2024. We're still working with the Department of Public Works on the required conditions to be included in the draft conditions in an operation and maintenance plan as requested by the board.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue this till our January 10th hearing.
Seconded.
Regular voting members and Greg, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
I vote yes. Matters continue to January 10th. Anyone that was here to hear those matters or speak on those matters, please know that the dates that those will be called. Okay, back to the regular agenda, continued hearings. First one up, cases 2343, 2344, 2345, 2346, 2347, 2348, 2349, 2350. Granite Family Trust LLC located at 314, 330, and 336 Salem Street.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
Thank you. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail representing the applicant on this matter. Granite's Family Trust at properties 314 through 336 Salem Street. With me tonight is Bill Mandel and Jim Cook, who are the principals of the entity. I also see our landscape architect, Jim Emanuel, on the Zoom. John Ogren is here from Hayes Engineering. And I think Andy is on. I'm hoping he's on. Andy, are you here, if I may ask, Mr. Chair, my architect? Andy Zaleski, are you on here?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Okay, great. I just want to make sure I had everybody that I needed to move forward. I want to give, I guess, start by giving an update on a couple of things, some housekeeping matters on this. We met with DPW last week, our team, to kind of go over where we stood with them on traffic, with traffic advisory, and also with the drainage, with the elevation of the building changing, and also in a cooperative effort to help the neighbors out back with the drainage issues that they're having. It was a really good meeting, and we came to a conclusion on a number of those things, as far as us agreeing to give an easement to the town for drainage and a contribution to help out with that. At this point now, TAC has issued a memo. You have not gotten that yet, but it recommends moving a crosswalk, and there's some costs associated with that my client has agreed to pay for, as was requested. So I think by your next meeting, we'll have those requested conditions from DPW, and I'll be in a position, as you would ask, to submit draft conditions and an operation and maintenance plan to hopefully get this project well on its way to closing out, and perhaps at the next meeting, if the board determines you're ready. So those are kind of two housekeeping items. Tonight, we had some homework assignments from you, and we'd like to present our work product on that. The first was, I'd like to talk about the landscaping. We had kind of presented some conceptual landscaping ideas out front. And then Jim Emanuel had to go back and finalize what he's proposing for landscaping with the stairs, etc. So if I may, Mr. Chair, just to keep this moving, I'd like to hand it over to Jim Emanuel so he can present that to the board.
Yeah, please do.
Great. Jim, can you share your screen?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Brian. This is Jim Emanuel here, landscape architect for the project, and I'll put my screen up showing the current landscape plan, which I hope everyone can see. As we had been extensively discussing this front area and the entrance at the last meeting, we had some conceptualizations drawn up. And in plan view, we've developed this plan and put together the planting plan for this as well. The areas in the back here remain largely the same, except for some additional plantings along the foundation on the back. But I'll zoom in. There was a discussion really about this entrance and what are we doing for this entrance. And one of the key components was to maintain a lawn space, and we've done that as we had in the previous meeting by having the lawn come and then come over this pathway and then continue over here onto the other side. So you've got planting beds, grass, and then in the foreground, some additional planting beds. We've looked at a stair that has kind of a flared entrance. So this is almost 8 feet wide. And since the last version, I guess we should note that we had, I think, a 4 foot wide stairway. We've widened that to 5 feet. And this is widened now at the widest point at the access to the entrance to 8 feet at its widest point on the flare. So we're proposing that as the entrance to this with granite steps. These would be granite slab type steps, so monolithic rock-faced granite coming up to a brick walkway and a small brick retaining wall on the side with granite steps coming up to a brick landing and then coming up to the doorway. So this configuration is similar to what we had before, but we've got the materials identified as granite, brick for the walkway, and then we've got plantings throughout the foundation, mostly evergreens and low evergreens along the base. We've got a small threadleaf maple and some boxwood shrubs, some lower shrubs along here, but we've got a small tree here, a slender silhouette sweet gum, which is a kind of a narrow tree. We've got a Japanese maple in the foreground of this section of the building, another sweet gum on the corner, and then the birch trees along the edge there to give this some scales as these trees will get up to, the birch trees will get up to 30 or 40 feet tall, sweet gums in the 20-foot range, and the Japanese maple gets about 15 to 20 feet as well too. This will max out at about 8 feet next to the entrance. So you'll just notice the again the configuration of plantings, lawn, plantings in the foreground. This is the retaining wall, which we've got at about 4 feet tall, maybe 3.5, depending on the grades on the sidewalk. And you will recall that we have the sidewalk with the existing grass strip. The lot line is this dark line right here, and we would cut through at this point and come to the entrance of the building right there. I believe Andy has some 3D drawings of this that kind of show renderings on a materials board. So he can certainly show those to clarify that. Any questions as that looks in 3D. But we've got the plantings and the plant schedule identified now and shown in the plant list. So I can take any questions on that portion of it if you'd like to at the moment, and then we can.
Yeah, please. I see Chip with his hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, first of all, I think you guys have done a nice job with this planting, and I'm appreciative of where you've come with it. You mentioned a brick retaining wall. Talk if you could on the high end of that walkway. I'm just wondering how tall that retaining wall is and what it is and how that's going to look.
This is a brick wall, so we've got the brick pavers
Yeah.
and we're at 102, and then behind that at its high point is 103, so it's
Yeah.
12 inches maximum at that height right there. So we really just want to continue the look of the brick veneer on this building facade, and then just continue that across this back edge here. So
And what's the cap on all this brickwork gonna be?
I think that we had talked about just capping it with brick all around as well too. So it would just be a brick surface on all of this. So
Sailor course brick.
yes,
I'm just, from a maintenance standpoint, do you think that makes a lot of sense?
Yes.
Having all those joints?
well, I think that the wall is, a diminutive wall. And it's not really doing a lot of retaining. I understand your point about maintenance. If it's something that, I don't want to introduce another material like bluestone, so we could
Okay,
certainly
that's
look at.
fine. I was thinking it might be granite capped or something like that. to
Yeah, I mean,
match
at the moment,
it.
we have it set as brick, and I think the renderings show that, so we can discuss that
Okay.
further when you look at those.
That's the only question I had. I think your plant sizes are good. I think your concept of keeping them different so that each one of these facades, if you may, look to be like a house unto itself is good.
Great,
I think you've nailed it.
terrific.
Okay, Jim?
Yeah, James. Can you zero in on the entry from the sidewalk up? So you got a flare, which is nice, at the stairway coming down, but
Yes,
that flare intersects a different curve, basically, where the grass would be. Can we not just continue that flare basically out onto the sidewalk so it makes some sense? Because right now it's like two pieces that are not quite aligned with one another.
are you talking about like?
Yeah,
this
yeah,
angle
that's
right there?
exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think that would be a minor adjustment that we could certainly accommodate and have that radius kind of continue out and flare it so that the whole entrance, there's more pavement in this area than there would be grass. That certainly would be something I would be fine with.
Now, the project is doing, or the project of the town is gonna do the sidewalk and the grassing in that
Yes.
strip.
Right.
Or is the project giving money to the town to do that work?
No, we're doing the work.
All right,
Yeah, because the town is gonna be ahead of us, Jim. So they want us to do the work.
okay, all right.
John Ogre, I'm correct with that, right? John,
Yeah, that's correct.
thank you.
We're doing the sidewalk.
All right, so that's not one of these other cases basically where the project gave money to town and then they wait 4 years before it shows up. Okay.
Nope.
Thank you.
Hey, okay.
Any other question, board members? Okay, let's keep moving, Brian.
Right, I'm gonna keep moving. So Andy's gonna go next with the architectural updates and these materials. Andy, I'm gonna take the liberty to share it. Is that okay?
Do you want me to share my screen?
I'm gonna do it. I'm all teed up to do it, just to keep
Okay.
it here, and then I can go through it as you want. Okay, let me know when everyone can see that.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Andy, I'll go to the next page for you.
Yes, keep moving.
Okay.
These we did present. These are the Anderson windows, the black windows with the white trim, similar to the Anderson picture at the top. 100 series, 6/6 pattern. I've actually presented this before, so we
Yeah,
go
why don't
through
you,
this.
why don't we, I'm gonna go through, Andy, and if there's no change on the slide, you don't have to go through it.
Yeah,
Just keep it
yeah.
moving. So let me know, so anything new on this?
White sliding doors as shown in the rendering. Keep going.
No change.
The fiber cement siding, this is pre-finished in the light mist color. I do have color samples at my office. That is a standard color from Hardy.
Right.
The cobblestone color to give it a little contrast on the middle unit. We are varying the exposure to the weather on some of them as well.
Okay, so this
The,
is kind of, this is the,
again, the booth bay blue is the third color to give the different units a different color. I don't want to get into the stair just yet. That's the older rendering.
Okay.
The feature siding, that was a question in the last meeting. It's acre shiplap siding. It's a natural color. The color is actually the color of the material. It's not an applied color on this. It's a V groove, can be done vertical or horizontal, and we are doing it. The next slide will also show you another place where we're doing it as kind of a lining around the patios, around the decks. It's a nice material. It's very resilient, won't rot, all that good stuff. Next. Porch bases. Here we want to use a Borel siding. This is it's a recycled material from fly ash, very durable, will not rot. It will be painted to match some of the trim so we can get the right color. It's a shiplap material. You can see in the diagram how it laps over. Next slide. The brick, we've chosen a Belden brick. It's a kind of a transitional piece, not old time colonial, but still keeps in that colonial range. And there is a color variation brick to brick, which I like, and a light gray mortar, very similar to what you see in the picture there. Okay, corner boards and architectural trim as the AZEC natural color. It will be put on with the plugs, so that it won't be caulked. We found that the plugs actually match the color of the trim. You can't even see them. The screw goes in, a plug goes on top. I'm doing a project in Rhode Island right now. It's coming up beautifully. Go ahead. Porch columns. The supplier is recommending load-bearing fiberglass. It's a square tapered column, 10 inch at the bottom, 8 inch at the top. I am still concerned maybe in the construction sequence, we may end up using a wood post with a surround that's a similar material. It's just a question of whether it's a load-bearing fiberglass or whether it's a casing that goes over the wood. When they're in place, they look exactly the same. The recommendation has been the load-bearing fiberglass. I'm just concerned about having a beautiful finish material out there during the early construction where it could possibly get damaged. So we're going to have a little discussion with the contractor about the best way to handle it, but it's a fiberglass either way. Thank you. Deck rails, we've already talked about, powder coated, white on the street side, black at the back. The canopy, I know we got some pushback on this. This, I have a very strong feeling. I want the entrance to be obvious. I want it to be different from the rest of the building. I don't want it to blend in. I want it to be lighted. Show the next slide. I want glass. I want commercial glass. This is really different. It is the entrance to the building, and I don't want it to just blend in. I want it to be obvious. I'm concerned a single woman coming home at night. I want lots of glass around that entrance. I want it lighted. I want her to feel safe. I want her to feel secure. I'm saying women, men as well, but again, you want to see what's inside as you approach. So on this, I haven't proposed a change. I want commercial grade. I want something that'll stand up to use and stay in position. And as I say, lots of glass so that you see inside when you come home in the evening, you can see that it's a safe place to enter. And I want it to present a modern feel to the residents in the building. There was a question about lighting. This is a light fixture. I like it. It's a transitional fixture, the Hinckley. It would be done, it's kind of hard to see in the rendering, but it would be done to flank the entry doors and also on the private decks where we have the porches. The door itself, I'm looking at a Geldwin fiberglass. This is a fiberglass skin, which has a wood grain, and it is factory colored. I like this oak amaretto color. I think it provides a very warm touch and a very residential look on the front of the building. Very different from the door on the entry at the back. This we already talked about, the bath vents that are concealed within the deck so that you do not see a vent on the face of the building. The dryer vents, they're color matched to the siding. They would only be used on the sides. It would not be used on any of the front of the building. We're going to run the dryers through the roof wherever practical. If the mechanical engineer, if he wants a booster fan or something, I really don't want to go that route. Those things are a maintenance headache. So there may be some vents low in the building on the sides, but not on the street face. Again, the deck lights, these are a down light so that we don't get spread. Very subtle, but it will give us a bright look at night without splashing the light away from the building. It confines it to the deck areas. On the lower decks, we can have a kind of a puck type of light. Again, keeping the light on the porch or on the deck and not spreading it beyond into the landscape or the neighbors. The roof shingles, we're looking at a GAF Timberline, the weathered wood. It's a good durable product. I've used it on my own house, has a long life. And I think the color, it's a warm gray color, which I've been very happy with. I think it'll complement the other colors on the building. And we got one more. Oh, yes. Oh, I already showed this. This is the natural stone that would be used for the retaining wall. And then the next slide shows the thin set synthetic stone that's made out of a concrete, which would be used on the building. They are not a perfect match, but I think they're very much complementary to one another. Okay. The walk, we're looking at full granite slab steps, and I'm looking at Boston City Hall pavers. I've used those in the past. I think they're a kind of a New England tradition. They do have a matte surface. My main concern about brick is I don't want a safety problem here. If we use a concrete walk, we can do a broom finish, which would give more safety. That's my biggest concern about the brick pavers, but I think the City Hall pavers have kind of proven over time that they are a reliable product. You can see, you had asked about the retaining wall. You can see that little tiny retaining wall at the back side of the brick. It just separates the planting bed from the walkway, so it keeps if there's any, what am I trying to say? There's ground cover in the planting bed. It keeps it separate from the walkway so it doesn't creep across and spill across. But we are proposing just the brick cap and the granite steps. And this, you can see the wider, I actually drew my picture with a straight sidewalk connector at the foot of the stair. But our landscape architect will work that out. I think, oh yes, the garage entry and ventilation. We don't propose any fans or anything. There's plenty of airspace to give us the 50% requirement. And at this time, we're not proposing a door. The garage will be open for the drivers. I think that's the final slide. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm gonna interject just for your benefit, Mr. Chair. So I have my checklist here of everything you were looking for. Columns, garage, the garage door, the front door, the venting, confirming no front venting on the front of the building. More residential style light fixtures and Also, you're gonna want some color swatches, Andy, at the building department. You said you have those, so they have to be delivered.
I have samples of the siding materials.
Yeah, one thing the board had mentioned, Andy, I didn't see it, is a roof plan. Is there anything done on that at this point?
Has not changed at all. It's there's a I mean, it's the roof plan that we submitted early on.
So that hasn't changed, any
No,
mechanicals? Okay, because that was a
the
note.
mechanicals are in a recessed area so that they won't be visible from the street at all.
So we have
Okay,
to get,
Brian, when were just so board members, this has been, as you know, this has been with us for a while. So board members can look back for that roof plan, because I had that on my list too. Can you, even if you can't find it tonight, can you just send a note for when it was submitted so folks can
It was part of the set that we submitted.
originally?
Yeah,
Okay.
there was a roof plan in there.
I'll send it again, Mr. Chair, and then you can disperse it.
Thank you.
Um,
Yep.
Is there a particular question that needs to be answered?
Yes,
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
What's the concern on the roof, Jim?
it's not the roof. I don't remember any material presented for the grillage and nor the color or anything like that for the garage ventilation open areas. And you haven't presented anything in here, and I don't remember anything in previous package. That's item one. And I think in the case of some of these images you've shown, which are more at a distance, and let's take the column one, for instance, along the front. The columns could be anything as far as texture or appearance or anything like that. I'd like to see in your attachments, basically a bigger, just the column type of thing is a cut in that. So you can see it in its proposed installation as a showpiece, but I'd like to see some of the stuff that's at a distance like this, that's in the package. So when we get to it later and the drawings come in for the project, we know what the style is or what it looks like. I mean, like, it looks like there's some sort of top element to it and a bottom element. And I don't know whether it's just a straight column or whether there's, compressed panels in it. So I think it would be good for the board to see that in a larger scale, just a column freestanding as another image to this. And you've got a few more that are similar to that, that could be pulled out of a catalog book as well. And I'm thinking about, for instance, the windows as a quick item, but I'm sure you've got some others there as well. So I just asked that we have a little bit more detail. Like that's, it's black, the whole window's black, so you can't really tell. So I look for an image to the right of that image on the top that shows the window, and it can be just a cut, shows us what it is. Because I can't,
It's an
you say-
Anderson window.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But let's get it recorded. I also understand, I heard you say that it was 6/6 or 3/3 or whatever it is.
Six
Well,
over
you can't-
six, yes.
You can't read that in those windows. So, but on the other hand, if you had an image next to it coming out of a catalog that had that layout in black, then we'd know. It's just a little more definition is all I want.
You mean like right up here, Jim?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
All right, the columns will be smooth. They're tapered 10 by 10 to 8 by 8. They do have a cap and a base, a standard cap and a base. All right. I don't have any of those materials available. I'm sorry.
But you can get it. So I'm just saying it should be, and when we finally sign off on this, assuming we sign off, I'd like to see more detailed information.
Should I bring an Anderson window into the town hall?
I personally don't think that's necessary.
What he's saying, Andy, is you can just put a cut sheet of the window right in this square up
All
here.
right, that's what I got from Anderson is what's on. I'll see if I can get something else. All right.
Okay, you said, Jim, did you want to make a
Yes.
comment on the rear entrance? I know that you and Chip had discussed that last time.
No, I'm fine with what Andy wants to do.
Okay. Chip, I saw you trying to chime in here.
Yeah, so something a picture kind of came up to. what are we doing for gutters, no gutters, downspouts? And if there are gutters, they haven't been shown anywhere, we don't know materials. And if there aren't, then we need to coordinate the landscaping to have some sort of drip edge. Or, stone around the foundation, you've got maintenance nightmare if we're not doing gutters, so. Just don't know what you're planning on doing, but
No, the
either way, there
previous
needs to be a
drawing
coordination.
showed all the downspouts. They're 6-inch aluminum gutters as shown in the rendering. Nothing's been changed. That's what,
I don't see them in the rendering.
oh, okay.
And I also don't see, are they going around are they going around and coming down the columns for the front decks? If you can tell me there's a downspout in that rendering.
No,
That's
there's
pretty
nothing in the
simple.
rendering. I'm sorry.
Right,
It's
so
in
you
my
said-
drawing, in the architectural drawing that we were shown.
Okay, but you haven't spec'd it here in the spec book. That needs to all be spec'd.
All right, there'll be 6-inch aluminum
That's
seamless
fine,
gutters.
they need to be spec'd.
We can do that.
Yeah. And are they going on the decks or not?
No,
The upper decks?
no.
So what's happening with drainage there?
The decks are pretty small. I don't anticipate a problem with that.
So rain
They'd be,
in the
the,
winter's gonna come down on the front walkway off the porch roof,
yeah, off the little porches, yeah.
so it's gonna come down on the stairs.
No, I show a gutter at the entry where the stair is, but the porches that don't have stairs that they can drip, they're small. Not a lot of water there.
Okay. So I'd like to see that detail in the,
Got it.
Kip, what about the railing, the front entrance railing? Do you want to see something on that also?
I think they were I think they had them, they were
Did they have
white
them
in
in
the
there?
front.
I know they had the
Oh,
balcony
they're black.
railings.
They're black metal railings on the stairs.
They were in there. All right. I know they were on
Yeah.
the balcony ones were on that. I wasn't sure about the actual front entrance one.
Joe, I think you're right, I don't think the front entrance ones were there. They need to be added, Brian.
It'd be like show. Yeah, they're there. That's shown.
Well, that's just a,
Got it.
Okay, anybody else?
I have a real quick question, not on this, but Brian, we talked about it on the project across the street. With the, what are we doing? Cause that's all paved now, so how are we gonna deal with the, moratorium with this project? Cause I know the one you did across the street, we talked about last month, they already
Yeah.
took care of that.
Yeah, so we talked to the town engineer about this and he's putting a spec together on what they're gonna require to tie in.
So you're gonna do that before everything's,
No, it's gonna be afterwards, but they're gonna allow us to do that, but they're gonna have a heavy spec on
Oh.
how to
how
do
you
it.
do how you do the patch?
Well, it's not really gonna be a patch. It's a little more than that, what he's.
No, underground?
So he gave my client the option. He said you can do it now or you can do it after. If you do it after, it's gonna be costly because you're gonna have to do this, this, and this, and my client opted to do it after at the higher cost.
Underneath probably, yeah. That's it, thanks.
There were too many connections out there, Joe, to do it now.
Well, I know.
You know what's going on in that property today. We don't even know where they all are.
It made sense on your duplex. That was an easy one, but that's
Yeah.
why I was getting concerned about this one. This is a big boy.
Well, plus with the mishmash out there today, they don't even know where all the connections are. So
That's good to know.
it's gonna get all cleaned up.
Yeah, I think you can see in this, it's on the screen, you can see the windows of the 6/6 pattern that you said you couldn't see.
Yeah, I think we're past that. We're getting a spec, so let's not waste time on that. Any other questions,
right.
from board members?
Yeah, Tom, this is Greg. I think Jim mentioned, but we didn't get clear. We need a spec on if there is going to be any grading. I know there's not going to be any door, but if there's going to be any sort of fencing in the openings to the garage. And then also probably when the O&M comes up, what we're doing with lighting there is going to be a house behind it. So it should be one of those lightings, that shut off, they're motion operated or something like that. So we'll need to understand how that's working.
Okay.
Yep. Got it.
Anybody else? The hearing none, Brian, was that the totality of what you wanted to present?
Yes.
Okay, with that, then, if you could stop sharing, I'm going to open it up to the public for comment. Are there any members of the public here that would like to comment on this proposal? If so, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. So Brian, sounds like, there's just some specs we want to see and maybe some materials down at the building department, colors and other things that can be put down there so folks can go down when they're available to take a look at all that. And I'm sure you took a list. I took a list of everything as well.
I got it.
So if you want to know, just email me.
I got it all.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, are we at the point to have Mr. McGrail, Attorney McGrail, put together a proposal for conditions and O&M and all that? I think we had talked about that.
Yeah, you already
think
asked me to.
Yeah, I think we are. I think we want to see the traffic advisory committee memo, the
Yeah.
DPW memo, the O&M plan, some potential conditions, and then the list that we put together tonight.
And this is currently extended already, Mr. Chair, out till February 29th.
Okay,
You don't need another extension on this.
I think we're good there then.
And given the holidays, is a continuance to the 14th reasonable?
January 10th, I think it is, Gail. right?
Yeah, excuse me, sorry.
Yes, it is. Yeah, we want to keep this moving. So I think there's not a lot here. We should be able to be back on the 10th.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue this to January 10th.
Seconded.
Yeah, regular voting members and Greg, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Greg,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Matters continued to January 10th. Thank you
Thank you.
all for your presentation. Next up on the agenda is the Northeast Warehouse Boston LLC located at 3 Melvin Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail for the applicant, Northeast Warehouse Boston LLC. We're back before you tonight. Just kind of a status update on some items here. We're working with DPW to kind of finalize their concerns, or I should say they just want to, understand the utilities and make sure we document them properly on the plan. They don't have any issues, but you need to hear that from them. And we're working on that with them. Last we met, Tan Sudoku, who is our architect, was going to put together what we deem to be a realistic materials plan, some colors that you wanted to see, and really kind of, I guess tightening up the building materials, etc. So he's ready to make a presentation on that tonight. If it's okay with you, I'd like to hand it over to him. John Ogren is also here tonight. Although I don't think he'll really have much to add because we're not through DPW yet. And my client, Jerry Keene of Northeast, is on the call also. So if I may hand it over to Tan to take the screen, please.
Yeah, please do.
All right, I shared my screen. So Artan Sadiku here, the architect for the 3 Melvin Street project. Just want to go quickly through the previous drawings that we've seen, just to refresh the memory of everybody, what we've seen so far. So this is our site plan, our building plans, elevations, and this is the bird's eye view showing the massing. And I think this is enough to refresh everybody's memories. In terms of materials, we had made some assumptions previously coming into the presentations. And during this last months, we have worked with different suppliers, vendors, and manufacturers of materials and come up with a solution that is, I think, fitting for the project. So this is our materials board. I'm just going to introduce them quickly before we move to the elevation. So the most visible part of the facade of the addition is going to be the metal panels, and these are insulated metal panels, and these are going to be our exterior wall. And in our elevations, we're showing 2 colors, one base and one accent, which we have selected of the manufacturer's custom stock colors. And we're gonna have a few storefront pieces in our warehouse, not a lot, but a few of them. We're gonna use typical thermally broken aluminum storefront painted with a medium bronze color. We have a pretty visible canopy at the entrance, which we are proposing to make it with standing seam metal panels. And again, we're picking an accent color to emphasize the entrance to the building. We have a portion of the overall building that is existing, of which we are proposing to paint it subtly, so with this Benjamin Moore standard colors. And we also have metal flashings and continuous extruded cornices on the elevations, for which we're picking the same color as the storefront. I understood from the last meeting that I missed. I apologize, I was out of the country. The board was interested about the railings on our multiple stairs and a ramp outside of the building, for which we are proposing stainless steel round pipes. I'm going to move quickly to our facade to connect all of this with our building. So this would be our addition. So the main body would be this striated insulated metal panel applied vertically. And to make it a little bit more interesting as facade, not just as a box, we've introduced this separate accent color, for which we are proposing to apply the panels horizontally. We're going to have those extruded aluminum panels on the exterior of it to create these cornices, and on the top of the building at the edge of the roof. And these are going to be the colors, basically. So we call this hardened earth for the accent color, and the main body color is going to be regal white. This is how the panel looks. I'm pretty sure you've seen it elsewhere. This is how the canopy over our entrance looks. This is the accent color that we picked, Mission Red from Apas, and it's going to have this kind of profile of a standing seam on the canopy on its covering. This is going to be our storefronts. Medium bronze is going to be the color. So all of these pieces of storefront, main storefront, and the addition of these storefronts at the not used doors that the board proposed to remove. So all of this storefront is going to be these medium bronze colors and glass, obviously. And then we're going to have these railings on the stairs and on the passage here to be standing seam metal panel. Sorry, it's going to be stainless steel. And overall, our building is very simple. So it's a warehouse after all. So there's no balconies or corbels or cornices. And as a result, our materials are not a lot. And this is what we proposed. We received a bit of more detail on the signage, which I can quickly introduce now, because it's going to be part of the facade. So this is what we're proposing today. It's just to give an idea of the size, it's going to be 17'8" overall by 6'1", and it's going to be stainless steel dimensional letters, and they're going to be backlit. So there's not going to be light coming off the letters, but it's going to be on the background of it. So during the day, you'll be able to see this. I think it's in the right proportion with the size of the addition. And during the night, you're gonna be able to see this. So just the background light. And let me go back to this, and in case you have any questions.
Yep, Chip, I see your hand up.
Yeah, quickly, how is the entrance canopy being held up? Are there wires going back to the building, or is there framework underneath? What's
Uh,
holding that in place?
But the idea is to make a light gauge frame on the inside of it and not to have any wires. So it's going to have enough dimension on it to be able to be attached to the back without any cables or any brackets underneath.
But isn't that across a whole window grid?
It is, we'll have to supply support on the window grid, on the mullions. Still
Okay.
support for to pick it up, but it's something that we need to detail, of course.
Okay.
Okay, Kasumi?
How is the handrail polished stainless handrail? I never seen the polished finished handrail on the exterior. I don't know if you consider the satin finishes more like a typical finishes.
Like painted?
No, more like a satin finish, like abrasive finish. Because I don't think I ever seen polished finish on the exterior handrail.
No, I didn't consider actually. I thought this was more in line with the nature and the character of the facade. It's I would not overrule it, so it's something I can consider.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Any comments, questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Joe here. Question on the signage. You said it's backlit at night. Is it lit all night or just on your hours of operation?
I don't think we have discussed about that. My assumption would be lit all night. It's a marketing piece in the end. So it would defeat the purpose, I think, to turn it off. I do not know if the owner has any plans for it.
Jerry, are you on here on that?
Yeah, I'm on here.
Could you comment on that, Jerry?
Yeah, I'm open. I'm open either way. You
Yeah,
know,
I thought our discussion was you don't need that on all night, Jerry.
I don't need it on all night. No.
I mean, 11 o'clock
if the
would
board-
probably be sufficient.
I would recommend that we look at what we required of the storage building across the way as far as timing on lighting.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
That sounds right, Jim.
Yep.
Kasumi, did you have another one? Or is your hand just still up?
No, just that one.
Okay. Anybody else?
Or even back to the timing, or even Jim, the Shaws, I mean, they're right next door to each other, so I understand they're probably more related type of building, but Shaws is right there, so.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
And I don't think the Shaw's lights ever turn off.
Probably not.
No, the parking lot lights, I don't think they do.
That's true.
So
Okay,
maybe we don't look at that, whichever is more restrictive.
You compare it to Shaw's, you won't even notice that one.
I know, that's my thought.
okay. Anything else? Board members? Okay, here, seeing others, if you could stop sharing,
Mhm.
appreciate it. Thank you. Are there any members of the public here that would like to comment on this proposal before us? If so, please use the raised hand feature in Zoom. Okay, seeing none, back to the board.
Mr. Chair, do you think we're at the point of asking Mr. McGrail to put together some thoughts on pulling this together?
Yeah, include an O&M plan that might include some limitations on the
Lighting.
lighting and the sign. Brian, when do you think you're gonna wrap up with town departments?
I don't think we're gonna be ready to, we're gonna be ready with them by the January 10th. I'm gonna ask to go to the second meeting in January on this.
Okay,
Yeah, we're gonna need more time. Do you agree, Jerry?
Yes. Yeah.
So I would say the second meeting in January.
That puts us to the 24th.
Yeah, because you get the holiday coming up.
Yeah.
I don't want to waste the board's time on it. I think, I want to keep coming back.
You'll continue at that point if you're not
Because what's
ready.
gonna happen is, the next 2 weeks, people are gonna disappear fast, and then by the time you come back, it's January 3rd, and so for the meeting on the 10th, you're gonna need stuff submitted by the 3rd. So it's
Right.
not gonna be a lot of time. So if we want to be safe, Jerry, do you want to go to the first meeting in February just to be safe?
Yes, if that's possible.
Yeah, I think it would be better, just so we're not wasting
The
your time.
February 14th date.
Yeah, if that's okay with the board, and you're gonna need an extension because it's only extended until January 24th at this point, whatever the preference of the board is on that. So we would request to continue to the 14th of February, and then you can plan what you want for an extension based on that. And we're happy to grant it.
Mr. Chair, I'd say March 31st.
Yeah, just in case we get snow or something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I mean, we're certainly getting close and they've been here long enough, but
right. No, if we can move it, but obviously the intent to move it before that, we can wrap this up, so.
so with that being said, I move that we continue this to February 14th. And we will accept a letter from the applicant stating that they extend the time frame to March 31st for a decision.
Seconded.
Regular voting members and Greg on the motion, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Greg,
Yes.
I vote yes. Matters continued to February 14th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next matter up before us is case 24-10, the residence at Nahant LLC located at 119 through 135. It looks like Nahant Street. Is someone here to represent that project?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. My name is Jason Panos, practicing law at 246 Andover Street, Peabody, Massachusetts. Here with Stefano Basso of SV Design, prepared to make a broad view presentation on the development.
Great. So before you do that, what if you could introduce your team that's going to do it, keep it at a high level.
Yes.
For the introductory meeting, I'd let members of the public know that it's our practice to take a high level look at the project. And then at subsequent meetings, we would look at individual aspects of the project, ranging from architecture to traffic and all the other things that folks will be interested. There'll be no votes tonight. So if you could proceed with that, Mr. Panos, I would.
Sure.
You pronounce it Panos?
Panos, perfect.
Okay, please go ahead.
And as a matter of administration, and we can save this to the end if it pleases the chair and the board. Is it the preference of the board to schedule out various topics to be discussed on night specific?
Yes.
All
So
right.
at the end of the meeting, we'll provide next steps, what we expect to see
Perfect.
at the subsequent meeting.
Perfect. So if it pleases the chair and the board, I'll give a brief overview of why we're here and where we've been over the last couple of months. As I indicated, I'm the project attorney, and I represent the applicant, the residences at Nahant LLC. The matter before this board is an application for a comprehensive permit proposing 100 apartment style rental dwelling units on parcels located at 0, 119, 127, and 135 Nahant Street, totaling approximately 1.72 acres, and which are partly located in Wakefield's business zoning district. That's 119 and 135 Nahant Street, and Wakefield's single family residence zoning district at 0 and 127 Nahant Street, which prohibits in either case the construction of the proposed development or multifamily housing in general. The application was filed on September 25th. The proposed development is filed under the Boston Federal Home Loan Bank New England Fund Program and is made pursuant to a project eligibility letter that was issued by Mass Housing on September 13th, 2023. Initially, the applicant sought project eligibility from Mass Housing for 120 units. After consultations with the town and Mass Housing, density was reduced to the plan you have in front of you now, resulting in about a 17%, that's 17% density decrease and a 20% massing decrease, resulting in about a 29,000 square foot reduction. As you are aware, this board filed a safe harbor claim at its last meeting in October. And the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities responded yesterday and denied that claim, rendering a decision in favor of the project, for which the town received email notice along with us as the applicant and this board yesterday. As far as the development team is concerned, the applicant, through its principals, have assembled a development team with significant experience with the management, development, and maintenance of multifamily housing, developments and affordable housing, subject to fair housing rules, laws, regulations, and each of whom will assist in the town's application and peer review process. Anthony Capichetti of Hayes Engineering, who unfortunately tonight is convalescing, he's been quite ill and isn't able to really speak tonight. So Stefano will be presenting slides that on the civil engineering side. And if you have any questions on those slides, then we will definitely pass them along to Tony, to the extent that Stefano cannot answer them. But there is a significant overlap between the design and the civil design plan set, as you will see tonight. And of course, Stefano is here with me tonight, who will be presenting on design primarily, but will, as I indicated, talk about your civil design plans in front of you. Scott Thornton from Vanessa and Associates is retained and will prepare and present the traffic impact analysis based on consultation with in meeting with the town's traffic advisory committee, which occurred on December 1st. So there'll be a slide describing the details of that, what the TAC asked us to look at. Do you mind if I share screen? And we'll start the PowerPoint.
Yep.
Actually, we can advance to the chapter 40B slide. And we will be providing this presentation to Gail Conroy so that she can have it as part of her record tomorrow. But we'll make this is the first time we're presenting before this board, and we will make every effort to provide these materials ahead of time so that you can also control the PowerPoint and put them up if that's the pleasure of the board.
Yeah, please do, because we're going to want to put it up on the town's website as well.
Perfect.
And I'm sure Gail has informed you it's this board's practice that anything that you are going to present at a meeting that we want it into the town to Gail by noontime on Friday, the previous.
Perfect. Excellent. And we will be presenting these PowerPoints going forward. We just think it's a more efficient way of presenting our materials, and scheduling out the various topics will help us in that regard as well, prepare accordingly. This is obviously as I indicated, an application pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40B. the statute was enacted to facilitate the construction of low and moderate income housing. The town is no stranger to 40B, so I won't go into the details of what's behind 40B, except to say that I always feel compelled, no matter how experienced the town is with development as you are, to dispel the myth that this is somehow subsidized housing. It's not. It's a mix of market rate and affordable housing that is designed to be available and affordable to a cross section of demographic, income demographic, and socioeconomic demographic. And these units are typically available to starting teachers and fire prevention and police officers, frontline workers, nurses, and so we feel that they do serve, these developments serve a critical need, not only for the town but regionally. The Zoning Board of Appeals possesses the authority to act for all local boards, which is broadly defined in 760 CMR 5602. Consistency with local needs is the critical aspect of what shapes the outcome of this application, of this proposed development, and others that will be and have been before you. The town of Wakefield is currently at about 132 units short of its subsidized housing inventory mandate that 10% of year-round housing stock be set aside as affordable, and the critical need for affordable housing in the town is presumed. The application, as I indicated, was presented under the New England Fund program administered through Mass Housing's home ownership program. Funding guarantee source for construction of comprehensive permit developments, in which requires 25% of units be subject to restrictions to ensure that they remain in the community's affordable housing stock and must be sold or rented at a fair and open basis. As I indicated, the residence at Nahant is not subsidized housing. It is that mix of market rate housing to service a wide range of demographic. The affordable units presented will be are presented to be affordable at 80% of the area median income, which is also consistent with the town's inclusionary zoning bylaw. This is very important. The up to 70% of the affordable units. So this is a 100-unit project. 25% of those will be set aside as affordable, being 25 units, and 70% of those we will propose and work with the town to be set aside for local preference. And the local preference rules, the way they work, are that current residents of the town will be able to be a part of the lottery. People living in the community at the time of the application, for example, municipal employees, teachers, firefighters, police officers, etc., employees of local businesses, households with children attending the community schools, such as Metco students, or participants in the school choice program. So we feel very strongly that this should not be a zero-sum game where there are winners and losers. We want to make this development a development for the town. And so I'd like to give you a brief description of the application, because you'll hear more on that through design and the engineering presentation. You can scroll. So the existing conditions, as indicated, we're on 4 parcels of land that comprise about 1.72 acres. The parcel is partially located in the Business B district. Ironically, the houses that are currently, the single-family dwellings that are currently fronting Nahant Street, they are in the business district, and the industrial buildings that are currently on the site, those are in the single-family residence zoning district. Access to the parcel will be directly through Nahant Street, a public way. As I indicated, actually, if you want to scroll, there's the site. Currently on the site on Nahant Street is on the lower part of the site. I'm sorry, that slide. There are two dwelling houses fronting Nahant Street, and you can see the industrial uses tucked away in back. The site is outside of a designated special flood hazard area, and as such is considered low risk. Structures and stormwater controls are in place, however, manage minimal amounts of stormwater on the site as we sit today. The proposed development is located in a diverse neighborhood consisting of single and multifamily homes alongside commercial and industrial uses. And the proposed residential use brings the property in closer alignment with the existing residential uses in the area. Actually, if you want to scroll to the next slide, and you can see some more aerial view of the site as it relates to the neighborhood. These are some pictures, renderings of nearby high-density multifamily dwelling units that are comparable. Grayson Lofts at 184 units, and then the school, which is almost across the street, at 20 units, running the gamut. You can scroll. The site is conveniently located nearby Route 128, where it's fairly easily accessible. The downtown and the high school and the middle school. The site is less than a mile from the downtown and the MBTA commuter rail station, which has frequent service to Boston. And the site has, as I indicated, easy access to Route 128, points north and south, and is a fairly walkable distance to and from the MBTA commuter rail station, and various other amenities offered within the town. These slides that we're showing are all in your application package. So if you haven't done so, please take an opportunity to closely scrutinize what we're broadly describing tonight. Additionally, the downtown and areas surrounding the 128 corridor are commercial centers of employment. The development will support local businesses by providing expanded housing choices intended to serve a diverse local and regional workforce served by the development's close proximity with those job opportunities, with immediate access to the surrounding region. Pardon me. The site is also located in close proximity to shopping opportunities, municipal services, open space, grocery stores, etc. Again, it's all in your application packet, and you live in the town and I believe are familiar generally with the site. And we are happy to schedule with you a site visit if that pleases the board at some time in the future certainly before the snow flies. We're happy to do that. The development itself, I will give you a broad overview. The existing structures will be raised, all of them, the two single-family homes and the industrial uses. To construct the development, the 100-unit multifamily rental apartment development is proposed in a 1 L-shaped building consisting of 12 studio apartments, 51 one-bedroom apartments, 27 two-bedroom apartments, and 10 three-bedroom apartments, for a total of 147 bedrooms. 5% of the units are designated as fully handicapped accessible. A total of 135 parking spaces are proposed for the development, with 59 parking spaces located under the building and an enclosed garage. So this is proposed as a podium over garage structure. And 76 of the parking spaces are located in an on-site open air lot. One thing you will notice, and I think you had, or at least the town had an opportunity to look at the comparison between the 120 unit plan and the current 100 unit plan. One thing that did was it allowed us the flexibility to get rid of a lot of tandem spaces, and Stefano will walk you through that shortly. And that freed up a lot more flexibility to be able to use the parking lot, not only for more efficient parking use, but also to allow for more green space and buffer. And you'll hear more about that shortly. There are 5 handicapped accessible parking spaces provided, including 2 van accessible spaces. 8 spaces are tandem. We had, what, 16 before? And will be assigned to 4 of the 2 and 3 bedroom units. The proposed parking ratio, 135 parking spaces to 100 units, is 1.35 spaces per unit, or 0.92 spaces, almost a full space per bedroom for 147 bedrooms, which comports with the recommendation of the Institute of Transportation Engineers. In addition, handicapped accessible parking are located in the most convenient areas, and sidewalk improvements are proposed, accomplishing easy access for pedestrians to and from Nahant Street. Bicycle racks are also provided both on-site and within the proposed garage, as well as a bike repair station. All vehicular traffic is contained within the site and will circulate throughout the site. Access to the site is directly from Nahant Street, and all drive aisles have been designated to be 22 feet wide, with the standard spaces proposed as 9 by 18 feet. Further, the proposed development features open spaces, I indicated, recreational and pet-friendly amenities, which will be available to all unit owners. Robust landscaping. Do we have a plan we can go to?
We'll skip down.
Yeah. Just so that, here we go. All right. So robust landscaping will be employed throughout to improve the visual impact of the development too, in creating a buffer from abutters. Minimal site disturbances are proposed to allow, to the extent practicable, for the natural site topography to remain and to serve as a natural buffer between the development and adjacent neighborhoods. As you will see, there are significant rock croppings to the rear and side of the proposed building that we propose will be maintained, because they do act as a natural buffer between the proposed development and adjacent neighborhoods. Sustainable design strategies include the integration of proposed exterior finishes. You'll hear a little more about that later. Featuring natural products such as fiber cement panels, masonry, and glass. All HVAC equipment and appliances for each unit will carry Energy Star certifications, and the development will seek certification as an Energy Star building designation. As I indicated, minimum site disturbances are proposed to allow for natural site topography to remain. Also, as I indicated, 25 of the 100 dwelling units will be designated as affordable and available to those residents earning a maximum of 80% of the area median income for the HUD prescribed Boston Quincy region, which we will update to 2023. As a rental apartment community, all 100 units will count toward the town's SHI, bringing it substantially closer to its 10% mandate. As I indicated, I think you were 132 units down. So we will help the town gain significant traction toward that 10% goal. The proposed development, as I indicated, is designed with a 70% local preference, resulting in 18 affordable units being first offered to local preference, as I indicated, through the parameters I described. The 7 remaining affordable units will be available to those participating in an open lottery system. A brief overview of the permitting. So, as I indicated, the applicant proposes all permitting through the comprehensive permit process, and in your application, Appendix N is in Nancy, there's a table in which we request various waivers from zoning and other town applicable town bylaws. Again, to the extent that any of those bylaws are would typically be in the jurisdiction of another board, they are now in your jurisdiction as zoning board of appeals, who will act instead of that other board. A comprehensive permit may provide for all local permits and approvals, enabling the construction of the multifamily development. And I think it bears mentioning the critical timeline by which the board must open and close its public hearing. You have 180 days from yesterday. Obviously, the safe harbor determination pushed back the time frame that would have otherwise been applicable. And so our 180 days currently runs to June 10th, 2024. It will be here before you know it. And then 40 days after that, assuming the board closes its public hearing, you'll render your decision based on a majority vote of the board, 3 out of 5. So with that, and through the chair and to the rest of the board, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Stefano for the technical aspect of the presentation.
Yeah, please
Thanks,
do.
Jason. So the design of the project.
I'm sorry, can you introduce yourself and your firm?
Oh. Yes.
Hey, Stefano Basso with SB Design Architects out of Beverly.
Our address.
126 Dodge Street in Beverly.
Thank you.
Yep. So when we were designing the building, we took a lot of attention to look at other building typologies around town. We were looking to blend a mix of architectural styles in the neighborhood. The design aligns with the medium-sized multi-story buildings. We're bringing in some of the brick type of siding that we see in mill building architecture. We're also bringing in some of the claddings that we see in the more residentially scaled buildings adjacent to the property. With a building of the size, we like to break up the massing. So we have kind of alternating types of siding, a lot of architectural details. We borrowed heavily from historical elements that we see in town. And the color scheme is more of a natural and muted color scheme that helps it to blend in with its surroundings. We've also located the building to create a real street edge along the Haunt Street. That's something we always like to do rather than place the building further away from the street with parking in front. The building serves to shield the parking from the view of the street. It has an L shape with a little bit of a bend that helps to break up the length of the building. As part of the massing reduction that Jason mentioned earlier, we were able to add some larger step backs at the top floor of the building. So as a 5-story building, we have a 45-foot step back at the rear now where we eliminated some apartments. That serves as a nice space for a resident amenity roof deck on the back of the building. We also have a 5-foot setback that we introduced on the 5th floor along the Haunt Street. That kind of brings down the height of the building that's visible from the streetscape. We also located more of the building close to the west side of the parcel, keeping it further away from more of the adjacent houses that are nearby there. So to ground the building, we used the traditional red brick where we get the most wear and tear on the building. It's durable. It's something that we see in the neighborhood. And we're going with a water struck brick, a little bit of color variation, but not too much. Nothing too crisp. We thought was appropriate for here. In the garage openings, we have some arch top for open air, and those are infilled with black metal grates, sort of reminiscent of like a wrought iron look that you would see in a mill building or in more of a Victorian townhouse that looks good with the red brick. We've also brought some of the brick up the building, specifically at 2 of the circulation stair towers. So that helps to break up the massing of the building and kind of carry that heavier cladding from the base up and bring it back through the building so that's not just isolated to the bottom.
Excuse me, can I ask you a favor? Do you have renderings that you could, as you're talking through this? I think it would be really helpful for the board and members of the public. Some members of the public, you're talking, you know, in a way that they might not be, not everybody's an architect and not everyone's on the Board of Appeals that are used to this stuff. So if you could, as you're describing this, have a rendering up to demonstrate what you're talking about, that would be really helpful in my mind.
Sure, yeah, definitely. I appreciate that. You know, I look at it so much that, you know, very familiar with it, but not everybody is. We can start with the renderings and then we can jump back to the floor plans, unless you'd rather see the plans first.
No, the renderings are fine.
All right.
And why don't you talk through your points?
Yeah.
As you're doing the renderings.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, so this first one, the view heading west on the Haunt Street. So you can see the driveway into the project site on the left. You can see some of the red brick that I was talking about on the corner of the building. It serves to create a nice prominent corner and kind of grounds the building. In between, you can see some of the clapboard that I was mentioning, drawing from more of the residential structures in the neighborhood. On the 5th floor, we're using a cementitious panel, a hardy panel product with aluminum reveals, in more of a blue gunmetal color. So sort of a traditional historical color introduced in a little bit more of a clean, modern application on the top of the building. We have a heavy cornice line on top of the building. And then we've also introduced a cornice line at the 5th floor that helps to break up the height of the building a little bit there. We also have some balconies at strategic locations around the building so that all the units can have outdoor space. And again, the balconies also help to populate the facade of the building. We're going with glass guardrail, metal and glass guardrail system to keep the balconies light and not too heavy. We think it complements kind of the heavier brick on the facade well. We're including double hung windows and a black sash and frame, again, to draw backs on some of the historical detailing. And we have sliding doors at the balconies. You can see a lot of planting. We've taken care on the landscape and civil side to fill as much of the green space with trees and plantings as we can, and also strategically placing them for screening and shading. Coming down the driveway and looking back towards the center of the building here and more courtyard space, you can see the stair tower where that brickwork works its way all the way up to the 5th floor. The main entrance of the building is nested here in the corner, in the inner corner here. We've introduced a lot of glass at this center corner with a little bit of a canopy to welcome residents in. The entrance to the garage is off to the side at the end of the building here. So that's where cars get in and out of the garage. Standing at the back corner of the property with Nahant Street further behind the building, you can see the bend that I alluded to earlier in the building. So it kind of wraps through the project site. You don't get a continuous linear line of building wall. Over to the top left, you can see the roof deck. That's the 45-foot step back on the top floor. Nice amenity space there with some other common spaces off of that. Looking in here, you can see the arch top openings in the garage with that grill work that I was talking about. Most of the units are on the upper floors as a podium construction, but we did move 4 of the units down to the ground level as part of that unit reduction. So even though we reduced the number of apartments in the project from 120 to 100, we were able to get a larger decrease in the massing of the building by tucking some of the units in what was fully a garage level before. On the opposite corner, in the back of the site, Nahant Street now all the way over to the left here. Looking around the wing of the building, so a few of the units have ground level access around a walkway here. You can see we're showing some ivy that would be growing up on the garage level of the building there. We've included planting bed around the building here. And this is looking out towards a terrace. That's an outdoor common space for resident use out around behind the building here. Jump back up to the floor plans, unless maybe do materials now. So this is just calling out what we were talking about with the red brick, more of a traditional, a little bit of a tumbled finish on the brick, nothing too distressed, but not too crisp either. Oh, do I have a question?
Yeah, Chip.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is much more detailed than we typically have in our first overview.
I
We're
don't
gonna
think,
have a whole meeting on architecture and design.
I agree.
Well, this is supposed to be from 1,000 feet. We're talking about ground level here.
Yeah.
I don't think this is an appropriate presentation for day one at all.
Yeah, let's keep this moving.
Okay. Would you like me to walk you through kind of the layout of the building on the site here on the site plan? Is that
Yes.
what you'd like to see?
Yep.
And maybe some of the stormwater appurtenances.
Sure.
I don't even think we need stormwater tonight.
Okay.
That'll be a whole nother night.
Right, let's walk through just an overview of the site plan so neighbors and others can see how this is located on the site.
Sure thing. So here on the architectural site plan, we have Nahant Street to the top of the page. The driveway access to the site over to the right. You can see the neighboring houses are shown here outside the property line, which is dashed in red. Vehicular circulation, we have the garage entrance here that I talked about. It's a two-way lane in the garage for in and out. We have access through here to the parking areas. We do have a few tandem spots over here. We were greatly able to reduce the number of tandem spots compared to what we had initially in this back area especially, which was great because it allowed us to increase the planted area back here by the 18 feet that we gained when we eliminated that row of secondary parking spaces. What we've done in the back here is to actually build up a little bit of a berm. So the plantings, trees and shrubs are on top of a berm here that provides additional screening from these houses. And that was something that also came up during our site walk that we did a few months back. So that was some great feedback. We have a few tree wells that bump out from the building and allow for a little bit of tree cover along the facade here. The main entrance that we looked at in the 3D with the entry plaza here. Elevator core in the middle for vertical circulation up the building with the stair tower at either end. The outdoor terrace that we looked at from the back corner is over here to the left side, the west of the property. And then these are the 4 units that were moved to the lower level. Just looking at an upper level plan, typical floor level, typical double loaded corridor scheme, the vertical circulation here at the center of the building. The elevator lobby is open up to that glass curtain wall that runs up the building. We have trash chutes on this end of the building on the lower level that feed a trash room with a compactor that would serve for waste removal. And then here on the 5th floor, we have the terrace space out back with the resident amenity space. We're showing a fitness center here and the club room on the front. Just in general, we have the unit mix called out on the plans, but we have a good mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. We're required to have 10% of the units be 3-bedroom apartments under 40B law. So we have 10 3-bedroom apartments and the rest are a mix. We have a few studios as well as 1-bedrooms.
Why don't you go right to the civil?
We can jump right into the civil here.
Yeah.
So on the existing conditions plan, you can see all of the 4 parcels that are together here. There's an existing house
Just,
here.
excuse me, just on this, I think we're gonna wait for your civil while we wait for your engineer to be present.
Okay.
Does someone on the board want to see more of this, or you want to wait for the engineer?
I apologize. I'm here. I just have no voice tonight. So I'm trying to save you from having to listen to me. I'm Tony Capichetti with Hayes Engineering. I was hoping to answer any questions, but we have been in contact with the city engineer. We're working with him, the town engineer, trying to resolve some of the stormwater issues, traffic issues, and the like. And, you know, from a higher level, I can go over the rendering plan very quickly if you'd like.
Yeah,
I
well,
think, Mr. Chairman, this typically is another night unto itself as well.
yeah, so let's wait.
I believe Jason has a proposed schedule for how to review the project that might help the board.
Yep, we're gonna get into that at the end of the hearing.
So why don't we jump right to where we left off? And I'm gonna say Tony's voice, only because it's very basic. As I indicated, we went to the Traffic Advisory Committee on December 1st. Yeah, why don't you jump to that slide? Those are the intersections that the committee recommended we look at. So Scott Thornton from Vaness, who I believe also did the high school project, is beginning his work on this traffic analysis. And so as we're thinking about scheduling out topics, I would ask the board to push that back a little bit to give Scott enough time to pull together his analysis and present it to the board accordingly. But this
And
is
I would,
basically.
We can do that. And I would ask on this traffic study, I'm seeing this traffic counts, that they do not perform the traffic counts over the holiday season, that they
Sure.
perform them under normal conditions that occur along the roadway.
Particularly on a school day, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I was alluding to.
I know, but I don't think we need to allude. Maybe I'm a little too blunt at times.
Chairman, I would add that not just the school day, but right around 6 o'clock, there are a lot of events that are dance, football, basketball, what have you, that Nahant Street can get pretty jammed up during that time.
Yep.
So I would suggest adding it, other than not just 2:30, but beyond that.
Agreed. There's a lot of activity that occurred on both ends of the street with Galvin and the Wakefield High School. For sure.
Yeah, the TAC was very adamant that we looked at 3 periods: morning peak, 7 to 9 a.m., PM peak 5 to 7, and then again during the afternoon school pickup. They thought those were the 3 worst times in that area, and we should analyze those.
Yeah, that sounds right. Thank you.
And through the chair, Tony, I understand you will continue to work with TAC to refine the result of the traffic impact analysis along with Scott?
That's correct. TAC was very helpful as far as the scoping session, and we'll work through them. Although we're not subject to TAC, we think that's probably the best way to handle it. Get a recommendation from TAC to the ZBA. That way you're comfortable that it's been reviewed by the traffic consultant and the commission.
Okay.
So with that, we're happy to answer any preliminary questions, and I have a couple myself, just in managing the hearing process and the peer review, most importantly, because we want to hit the ground running with that as well, in addition to our interaction with the town engineer and the TAC.
Okay, those can wait to the end. Why don't we get through comments and questions from the board, and then we'll open it up to the public.
Sure.
And we'll identify next steps and process questions that you might have.
Awesome. Thank you.
So if you could stop sharing so I could see the screen, that would be helpful. Thank you. Members of the board?
Yeah, Tom, I'll take the floor first. This is Joe. So I guess one of my biggest questions, when I look at these big projects, I look at parking as the #1 issue. So I'm trying to figure out where you got your unit count at. Typically, I know you guys can bypass the bylaws, but typically it's 1 unit per 1,200 square feet, which, if I do my math correctly, you're at 1.72, and that comes out to about 63 units. If you were closer to the commuter rail, you can do 750, which gets you to your 100 units, but I don't believe, you said you were 3/4, so that's 39, it's like 4,000 feet away, and you would have to be 2,500 feet away from the commuter rail. So, I mean, I guess my biggest pet peeve is your parking. You don't have it now. If you got down to your 63 units, that would give you to your 90 parking spots, which would eliminate a lot of this, the height. You could shrink the building a little bit, get further away from the street. if you wanted to comment on that. Where you got that 100 unit count. I know you were at 120 at one point. And I know you guys come in at high because you know we're gonna lose, hopefully lose, well, for on our sake, we want you to lose some units. So you come in high, just, you know, figuring you're gonna lose some, but I guess, you know, where did you come at 120? And then I know you guys came from 120 to 100 before you got to us, but where do you want to comment on that?
If I understand the question, it's how we arrived at our 100 unit count. Well, we looked at the most efficient use of the site. As you indicated, we started off at 120 units, and in consultation after hearing town comments and in consultation with Mass Housing as well, we reduced not only the density to 100 units, but we made some significant changes to the building itself, how it steps back from Nahant Street. As far as the 100 units are concerned, that is what justifies economically the viability of the development. And beyond the economic justification, we looked at how we could maximize the parking ratio to 1.35 unit spaces per unit. And given the circumstances of where the property is, having looked at like projects and location of amenities, we came to the conclusion, given where traffic trends are, parking absorption trends, that 1.35 units, spaces per unit, is going to exceed what the parking absorption trends are for the town of Wakefield and other like situated towns where you have vibrant and active commuter rail and close access to highway corridors. But Wakefield, as you know better than I do, that commuter rail station is very active, and we think we're close enough to it that people will take advantage of those amenities, those commuter amenities, rather than hopping in a car to get from place to place. So to get back to your question, why 100 units? 100 units is basically the sweet spot we settled on with regard to economic viability of the development, given the site work that we have to do, and where we are from a community amenity standpoint.
Just to add, briefly, Mr. Pride, the parking ratio we came up with was based off of the Institute of Traffic Engineers recommendations for a mid-rise multifamily residence. And TAC did ask us to take a look at the parking usage at some surrounding buildings. So we will be presenting some parking data to TAC as well.
All right, because a lot of the other products that we've done, we have approved, it's usually around 1.5. And the last couple of products, we did approve one that was maybe 1 or 2 parking spots shy, but not, what's this, 20, 15 shy. I just think it's too big. I don't think I'm going to be the only one saying this tonight, but that 1,200 square, 1 unit per 1,200 square feet usually works out to give you a good sized building. I know money wise, that way it may not work for you, but for the site in general, to get down to 60 units, I think would give you a lot better, give the town a better building for that site. It won't tower over the building that's the houses that are next to it. But that's just, that's how I stand. I figure, if you do that equation, you're gonna be at 63 units. I think it's a better unit count for the town. But that's That's where I stand. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. Just on that point, I appreciate, Tony, that you stepped in there. So, Mr. Panos, if you're gonna cite like parking absorption trends and those types of things, if you could cite where you're getting that information from, that, you know, attribute it to it, so it's not just. So we see it as empirical data as opposed to, you know, an opinion of someone that's advocating for the project. I'd appreciate that.
So
Yeah, absolutely. And for perspective, and we're happy to give you the reporting on this. The Metropolitan Area District Commission did a lot of, and the reason why I know about this with regard to Boston North Metro communities is because I do a lot of work, a lot of 40B work in Metro North, North Shore. But the Metropolitan Area District Commission has studied parking absorption rates and trends throughout the many commuter accessible communities. And I believe Wakefield was part of that, those recent studies, but that's where I'm getting that from.
Okay, just making a point. Let's move on. Chip,
Yep.
you were the first other one with your hand up, so turning to you.
Yeah, I have a number of questions and they don't necessarily need to be responded to immediately, but down the road is fine. You made reference to the fact that your development group has put together a great group of people, but you've never talked about who the owners are, who's the money behind it, who are the principals. So one, at another time, I'd like to know who the principals are. Two is I'd like to know what other projects this group has done in neighboring communities. I know you've never done one in Wakefield, but you know, what's another 40B that this group has participated in, so we can see what one of their products is like. Two, you talk incessantly about setting back from Nahant Street. You're not set back. You've got a 5-story building on Nahant Street. That's not set back at all. And 5 stories is totally inappropriate for this neighborhood. I mean, just in your own renderings, you're towering over neighbors' houses. You're talking about having to put a berm on the back so that you might be able to do a little screening to the houses next door. In my opinion, this project is out of touch for the road. It's out of touch for the neighborhood. It's totally inappropriate. And I appreciate 40B. I love affordable housing, but this project doesn't meet. It might meet the standards, but it doesn't meet fitting into a neighborhood. You know, we've done a lot of stuff to that sense. This project doesn't do any of that. I think the architecture is boring, very simplistic. I don't think there's any concept. Sorry, that just not my cup of tea, but you know, there's no, and also if you're going to show a rendering, let's please show a rendering that's real. The rear rendering you showed miles of grass. You're within 10 feet from the lot line. That rendering is not accurate at all. Not even close. It looks like you have a grass backyard and you don't. Your lot line's 10 feet from there. So what are the trees that are there? How close is that back house in that corner? So I'm struggling with this whole project. I'm very curious to see what TAC comes back with adding this type of volume on this road. So those are my comments, Mr. Chair, for tonight.
Thank you, Chip. Jim, you were next.
Yeah, so we start out with a description of where other projects are in town. And they're mostly in the old industrial area, basically. So we start to show images of these other buildings that are built in town, miles away from a neighborhood here, in a whole different area, which was industrial, has been industrial, even North Avenue, basically, a building like what's supposedly here, which I have a problem with. But I think you got to think about what you're building within, not look down the street for an excuse. Basically, oh, they did it here, they did it here. You got to look at the context of that particular neighborhood. You're not looking at the context of this neighborhood. You're starting another industry in the middle of this based on an industry that's somewhere else, or industry that had higher buildings originally, and now they're being replaced by housing. And I took while we were talking here and looked at some of the designs that SV Design has done on other projects. And this doesn't come up anywhere near their standard, quite frankly, at least the ones that they show on their website. Now, maybe they have some that are not up to that quality, and this certainly doesn't match that quality that I saw in there. So I'm looking for basically someone to really step up on the design side. One, make this contextual with the neighborhood, and two, basically to provide a much better design than what's being proposed to show to us based at this point. And I would say that's going to have to be drilled through this whole thing. And how this thing is contextual with the neighborhood, not with a neighborhood that's, a mile away or, in another area that's in somewhat industrial because of its history. That's it.
Thank you, Jim. Greg?
Yeah, yeah, I know we usually start with the most important subjects, and usually we get right down to like massing and stuff in the first or meeting after this one. But to me, I think the most important aspect of this one, although massing is extremely important, but this one is unique in that I think the safety of this being on the Hahn Street is paramount. I mean, this to me, right off the bat, is a completely unsafe project. I mean, or educated guess, this must come close to doubling the number of units on the Hahn Street. I believe within the past month or so, there's been at least 2 accidents on the Hahn Street. I think one car hit a house. It's a narrow, windy road. Yes, it's already, not the safest road, but putting a doubling the amount of units, I mean, I don't see how this is safe for the neighborhood. I think Mr. Panos, earlier you mentioned how you found this to be the sweet spot between economic viability and use. I think the term though is economic feasibility. And not a sweet spot either. What is economically feasible? So I'm extremely interested to what's going to come out of TAC and what conditions for the safety of that neighborhood that we can put on this project to make it continue to be safe that still are economically feasible. And to me, I think one of the things that needs to be looked at first is, again, not economic viability, but feasibility of reducing this project. That seems to be the easiest way to go to make it safe for the neighborhood. I think we'll have to hear from TAC, and I think we'll also have to hear from Chief Scory, both of police and fire chief on this. It just seems to me that this is a completely unsafe project, and it's going to take a lot to convince and to condition this to get it safe.
Okay, Greg, thank you. Mickey, I see your hand up too.
Just to expand on Greg's thing, Mr. Panos mentioned that TAC is really not involved in the process. I mean, obviously, we will be in charge of the comprehensive permit, but safety is one of the things that can stop these projects. And if a fire truck cannot, probably the major thoroughway to that half of town, if a fire truck can't get to that half of town, never mind Nahant Street, because of increased traffic impacts, et cetera, ambulances, even school buses, all of it, the safety is going to be the primary driver of where I come down on this, and where the board's obviously going to be looking at what traffic impacts, what parking, what impacts this is going to have. And I can't imagine that 100 units or 120 units, 100 units are going to affect, just drive that area at 5 o'clock on any given night, or 3 o'clock on any given night. And you can't get through there in a Honda Civic. I can't imagine in a ladder truck. So I'm gonna anxiously await what TAC has to say.
All right, thank you, Mickey. Kasumi?
I do agree with everybody else that this project is too big for the neighbors. And also I question about like I saw this presentation before too, but you quoting it's walkable to the downtown area on the Wakefield. I don't know if any of you have any small children with you. Like there's no way I have a small children. I'm gonna be walking from that site to, for example, like the library in the town library. Like I'll be driving there, like especially, January, February in the snow. So you're gonna be adding 100 units and then at least 100 cars, maybe like 150 cars, like going back and forth on the Nahant Street already congested. Everybody's going to sports or sports like high school, middle school. It's just it is just too big for that neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. I'll just at this point add my voice. Safety is my number one concern as well. I think the massing and the safety are actually tied together, Greg, because of the massing and the size of the project. That's what presents the safety issues. You have the town's children at both ends of the street at either a Wakefield High or a Galvin, there's a lot of kids driving and walking to school and back and forth to school. So safety traffic is a major, major issue. We have a letter in the file already from the fire chief who has concerns about how they would, combat a fire at that site, given the project's current design. So we're not the only ones expressing this. I think you're a long way away from having a safe project. And, the massing obviously is the elephant in the room too. It's so out of place. To Jim's point, the context, there's no context here for a building of that size on this street at all. So I think we got a lot of work to do here if this thing's ever going to get through the board, because it has some serious issues in my mind. So any other comments or questions from the board? And I ask my fellow board members too, how they want to handle this. I have a number of correspondence. I think what I'll do is, rather than many of them are lengthy, I think I'll try to summarize them quickly. One from the Conservation Department. This was dated back on October 5th. The site is not within the commission's jurisdiction for the Conservation Department. I got a letter from the Planning Board dated October 17th. They have significant concerns about the project too, about pedestrian vehicle safety, the massing, all the things that we went through, how the bulk and the building is not consistent with neighborhood context. The plan purports to be transit-oriented development. This is not apparent. They disagree with that. The landscaping, they have serious issues with. The existing ledge at the rear of the property, they have serious concerns about. So the planning board is very concerned about the project as well. Again, I have a letter from Chief Sullivan from the Wakefield Fire Department. Again, with many of his standard things about sprinklers and that stuff, but he has significant concerns about that engine can only address two sides of the building. And he's concerned that the parking lot currently, but must provide a means for fire apparatus to turn around in the parking lot. And that is currently not the case. So fire chief has some serious concerns as well. And I have letters from Dick and Cindy McGrath at 8 Hart Street, Samantha Spanula at 10 Hart Street, Carrie Ann Green from 100 Hart Street, Sheldon Moniz from 9 Hart Street, Allison Jana and family from 21 Hart Street, Karen Grasso McMaster from 25 Nahant Street. All with significant concerns, much of what mirror what the board had brought up. So we have some serious concerns in the neighborhood as well as the professional departments of the town on record. With that, I think I'm now open it up to public comment. If anyone is here to comment on this proposal, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom, and I will call on you. I see someone with a Jillian King for a title.
Yes, exactly. Actually, my name is Jack King. I'm using my daughter Jillian's computer. I live at 3 Old Nahant Road, and I've been in the house here for 42 years and have a pretty good sense on the ground of what the traffic situation is out here. And as several members of the board have indicated, it gets pretty difficult, not just on Nahant Street, but also on Farm Street and on the street I live on, Old Nahant Road. I'm right on the corner of Farm and Old Nahant. So that is a very significant concern. And I can tell you, based on my own observation, in the morning around the time that the middle school is starting up, you cannot really very quickly get down Nahant Street going westbound. You might typically find yourself most of the way out toward Farm Street, waiting in traffic, slowly creeping up to that stoplight on Main Street. So it's a very significant issue. The reverse is often true in the afternoon as people are heading out toward the high school. So that's a problem. My own street, Old Nahant Road, is now backing up to and actually beyond Oak Street in rush hour, and having another 100 cars booming back and forth probably is just going to make that worse. So traffic is a really significant problem. I think that I would like to also echo some of the comments I heard from several members of the board tonight about how this project fits or doesn't fit in with the neighborhood. And let me tell you, it's just, you all seen the neighborhood here. You live in town. It doesn't need to be repeated in any real detail, but this would be enormously detrimental, I think, to the quality and character of that neighborhood. Yes, there are multifamily dwellings there now. Yes, there's a very nice looking apartment complex, condo, I think, actually, in the converted Franklin Street School now. But those are utterly different than what has been proposed here this afternoon. This is a gigantic elephantine thing that's being proposed to essentially fill the entire confines of the property. I found it, frankly, of signal importance that none of the renderings actually showed what this would look like from the Nahant Street side with any real clarity. I think it would be interesting to get a rendering that shows how massive this building's facade is on Nahant Street, even though representations were made about how most of the building is, if you will, hidden in the back there. It's big enough nonetheless at 100 units that it's going to dwarf the street. I think I simply want to reaffirm and echo the sentiments that were expressed by several members of the board tonight, really by everyone who spoke who's on the board tonight, about the inappropriate nature of what has been proposed thus far in this project. I think it's grossly inappropriate. It is not going to be a good thing for the neighborhood. It is not going to be a good thing for the town. And some of the things that have been stated about the benefits that the project would provide, such as easy access to the train, are farcical. The train is nearly a mile away from that location. People are not going to find it simple and easy to walk 2 or 3 minutes to the train there. They're going to be tempted to drive their cars and then try to park maybe in the Catholic Church parking lot when they go to the train. So you're going to have more traffic, minimal benefit. It would be highly beneficial to the current owners of the property, I suspect, and very beneficial potentially to the developer. It is not beneficial to the town, not beneficial in my estimation to the people who live in the neighborhood. Thank you very much for taking my comments.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, come back to the board. So one of the things, board members, that we want to plot out that we usually do, and we heard the project proponent talk about, is plotting on a schedule. We usually do architecture, massing, site first. Greg brought up an interesting point with safety, but I think they're tied together. So I'm tempted to look at the architecture, the massing, and the site first, but I'm interested in what other board members think?
I'm with you, Tom, but safety being the utmost, I do agree that if we're trying to, I think because of the time frame we are on, we need to keep moving. We can't sit idle waiting for TAC, even though that's as important a subject as any. So I would agree that we do massing and architecture next. And then we can go to site civil and from there, and just hope that TAC keeps moving. And that they can get their report done as quickly as possible.
And if I
Back
may,
to TAC.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on anyone. If I may interject and just reiterate, we still need to do our traffic impact analysis based on the direction TAC gave us. Tony, I don't know if you're still on, but I am not sure yet how long it will take for Finesse to prepare that traffic impact analysis, but they only had their meeting a couple of weeks ago, so I know Vanessa's on it. I just don't know where they are at right now. We just need more time. And that seems to be a critical factor in determining safety, and you're gonna get, as I understand it, TAC will review that traffic impact analysis and then render a report to the board. That's a question.
Correct. TAC typically renders a report to the board. The traffic study would probably, the counts would happen early to mid-January after the New Year holiday. And then the analysis, the report would come out end of January. So that would put them into probably the February TAC meeting. Having said that, an accident and safety analysis is not dependent on the counts, so I can talk to Vanessa about pushing that up, and maybe we can submit that early in the in this process, so we can do the safety analysis first, and then the traffic portion of it later as the counts come in, if that would if that's something the board would desire.
No, I think I want to see traffic and safety. I think I want to see one package.
Okay. No, understood, and we can do that and schedule accordingly.
Okay.
So I guess, Tom, what I would say to that though is the traffic is one thing, but the safety is sort of, for lack of a better term, the gating item for this. So I would say if anything, they can push any of that up would make more sense than just waiting for one package, especially given that we've already heard the 6-month sort of drop dead.
Okay.
Because if there's any
I'm
way
not-
that can change the project, or we can come up with some sort of conditions or any of that stuff, then knowing that as early as possible. Traffic is one thing, but as we know, the safety is really what can drive this project.
Right, I agree.
Yeah, and one thing we already heard is that Chief Sullivan has said a fire truck can't get and turn around in the parking lot. So have they had access to all the letters you spoke about tonight? Do they have copies of all that?
Mr. Panos, do you have copies of the?
We do not.
Okay.
So I can touch base. I assume Gail Conroy has all of that and she can put a
Yes.
package together perhaps and email it to me.
Yes. That's true.
Awesome. And I'll disseminate that to the project team, and we'll take a hard look at all of it.
Okay. So I agree with Greg. I'm willing to change my mind on that. Let's get as much safety material as we can up when we can get it.
Mr. Chair, am I correct in thinking that the Voc had VHB as well?
I don't recall.
And I think Chip said it during the holidays, he didn't want to do counts then, but if they already got counts, they can do this now. My issue with TAC and VHB traffic plans and such, they tend to get held back to the end of the project because we can't do it. There's a reason why. It happened at Quantico Parkway. It's happened everywhere. I believe it's an actual strategy to actually have the safety part happen sometime in April or March or later than right now. I think right now it's the most important thing in the room. And if VHB is doing it, and Jason, I believe that's what they said, you said, I think they did the vote too. Anybody who has,
It's not VHB.
No, VHB is
it's
our
not-
consultant, Mickey.
Yeah, Vanessa
It's,
Associates,
it's Vanessa and Associates.
which Vanessa used to be the V in VHB.
yes,
Right.
that's okay. So they're different than that. Well, okay.
Yes.
I've aged myself, but yeah, okay.
Okay,
Bottom line is, basically saying everything everyone else is saying, safety first and getting it as quickly as possible.
So, if I could just ask a question, how, through the board, through the chair, how will peer review on this development be managed? Will you be doing everything internally? Or will you be hiring outside consultants for any of it?
well, for traffic, we have Vanessa or VHB, whatever they're going by these days, that works with the TAC. Everything else we do in-house.
Okay.
Between engineering, Bill Renault, the engineering
Yeah,
department.
we rely
all
on our
of that.
town departments, right?
Excellent, okay.
Tom, have we given any thought to getting an Ezra type on this?
It's one of my questions I had for the board at the end.
Okay.
A what?
We want to get help from the state on many of our.
Massachusetts Housing Partnership.
Yeah,
MHP.
You know, like Ezra we've had in the past? No, not
Right,
ringing a bell?
yeah, no, I remember Ezra.
Looked like you were frozen for a second.
No, I was trying to think about it, but I think that would be great help. He's walked us through a lot of these projects. Helped us with our thought process.
yep. So I'll reach out on that, Greg. All right, so for next week though,
For next meeting.
Mr. Gillian's point's well taken. In terms of the renderings, I thought they were really lacking. I'd like to see what the building looks like from the Han Street. I'd like to Chip's point, I hope that they're accurate in terms of how they reflect property lines and where your landscape plan might include. But you know, what I saw tonight didn't cut it. You know, I don't know how we can have a serious discussion on architecture and massing with what was shown tonight. I hope you have more that you're ready to share at our next meeting.
Particularly in massing. Like what's around, what heights are around, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I guess to that point too, is when you do see the letter, especially from the chief, if changes need to be made, you know, don't just come back with what you've presented already. You know, we want to see what's really going to get built and not what we're trying to just force in here.
So you mentioned the view from, more views from the streetscape. Are you looking for more zoomed in? Like
What's it like?
material?
What's the pedestrian experience going by the building? How will the person that lives across the street, you know, see the building? How will they, you know, what's that going to be like for them? I don't mind, you know, a couple of renderings that show when you're coming up both directions of Nahant Street to see how people that are using the street and the vehicle are going to experience the building as well. So I think we want to see a lot of different views like that.
And we're okay knowing the minutia too. Just as an example, in other buildings, and I guess I leave this up to, you know, I'm sort of a lawyer of the group and not a builder, so I leave this up to others, but we've done shadow studies, you know, and maybe that's warranted here because it is a 5-story building with other a lot smaller. So we need to know how people are going to live based on what you're presenting.
Yeah, Jim, any other ideas on what you would like to see in terms of the renderings?
Well, I I still stand where contextual nature of this building doesn't fit. I mean, the obvious one is the height.
Yeah.
The materials basically that, well, we grabbed a little bit of this, I grabbed a little bit of that. Oh, we looked down 5 blocks over and we grabbed this material, just the architecture. And as I said, I've seen what SV design is capable of, and this just doesn't fit, period. Now that's in, what they show you on the brochure, not necessarily what they did somewhere else that doesn't qualify for that colored page, basically. So I think it's a poor rendition of their abilities, basically, and I think it needs a lot of work. I mean, this is something I might see on a campus or something like that, or somewhere else. It's just doesn't fit into the neighborhood or is contextual enough for me. I just see it as a disaster in many ways, but on a contextual side, everybody knows how I feel about those sort of things. We need to deal with it.
Yeah.
Just has to be dealt with it. And I think that what I've seen from SV stuff, they have the ability. They just got to be allowed to use it. And I think that, they might be driven by economics or some other things, but this just is terrible. That's
I hear you, Jim. I think I think there's something here for the design. So, we'll go back and we'll add the views that you've requested. And we'll kind of sharpen the pencil. We'll zoom in on the materials and we'll make our case to you, for why we think this is appropriate. And then, hopefully we can win you over next time.
Okay. But as you're handing these in, Mr. Panos, to Chip's point,
Yes.
this board, I think, does a lot of background and research. What other projects has this team done? Can we go look at one somewhere that would be similar to this? So we can maybe experience it firsthand completed. I think, his question on the principles, that will be important too, because the issue of economics came up. Well, if it's the same owner that put something before us a year or so ago, they only had about 30 units. We just asked them to change the design and they disappeared and came back with 120 units. So I find it hard to believe that they could have done about 30 units was economically viable, and that the only way this is economically viable is with 100 units. So anyway, information along those lines would be helpful as well. Anything else, members of the board, or Mr. Panos, if you have any more questions or?
Yeah, so at the next hearing, we're going to talk about architecture, massing, and site.
Yes.
Okay. And within the context of that, and that's a lot.
Yeah.
So I suspect that that's going to spill over to even a subsequent hearing. For site, for example, you're going to want to hear about stormwater appurtenances, how we're going to manage traffic flow through the site, that type of thing. Massing, I think we have a lot of information that we can extrapolate further to the board as we sit today. Architecture, you heard from Stefano, and he's gonna take another look. And keeping in mind, under 40B, what's before you are preliminary plans. And part of the back and forth and advantage that we have in working with the board is that we will ultimately refine, project plans and concepts, but they are at a preliminary design phase. They're far more advanced than they were at the mass housing level, but they will develop as this process unfolds. We need that peer review and that significant back and forth that we anticipate having with the town in order to fill in some of those blanks. And so that process is critical to us. And there will be refinements that will result from it. It's just the nature of the process. So, the plans before you are basic. We will continue to fill them in as time goes by and as peer review informs that, you know, how those plans are going to develop. At the end of the process, though, you're not going to get structural plans. You're not going to get building permit quality plans. You're, you know, that's for a different process entirely.
You're talking to somebody basically in this group that's gone through all this. We're not neophytes here, all right?
I get
We
it.
know that we're not going to get structural design. We know we're not going to get this and that. And we also know that we've spent a lot of time with other projects basically where in fact the design that came before us was terrible. And we worked on it with them basically to get better product out of it that is more appropriate to the neighborhood or the town. And sort of lecturing us there doesn't help your case from my point of view. And I would be quite upset. And I am. So
Well,
let's just get off it. We're gonna do design, we're gonna talk about design, and we're gonna work with SV basically to make sure that we get a better product, something that's appropriate. We don't need to look at, you know, sewer systems or anything like that. Let's just get to the design and get moving. And come up with a better concept. I would flush this one right down the toilet, start over again, period.
Well, we're not going to do that, but we will work with the board to refine and develop the plans.
Again, that's what I said we've done in other projects. We've refined, we've worked with people to come up with a better product, all right?
And we're willing to do that here.
Let's not discuss it anymore. You've
Yeah.
heard the comments.
Yep. And board members, we'll think about whether or not we need a subcommittee as we've done in some of these other projects moving forward. So for the next meeting, think about your work schedules and your life schedules, and if we need to do that, who would be available to do that?
I would suggest that we probably will, Mr. Chair.
That's what I'm thinking, but kind of put your thoughts together on what your next 6 months look like of your life.
Mr. Chair, if I could ask, what would a subcommittee look like and what would be the purpose as far as the interaction? Would it be a buffer between the board and the town's peer reviewers and the development team?
No, like.
So we don't have to redesign it here at every meeting.
Right. If
Right, I got it.
If we're a million miles apart on design, let's, you know, we can do it offline and not take up hours
Right.
At these meetings. So
We have in the past basically had a group of people that got together, usually about 2, worked with the architect and the developer to generate something so that this board doesn't design at its public meeting going to 12 and 1 o'clock in the morning. It's basically it'll be a bunch of meetings and when we reach a point where in fact that group of people feels as though they've made some progress, then that would be up to the developer, the design team, basically come back and present where they are. Because at that point, there's probably some decisions that the board has to take at that point. But the whole point is we've spent as a board many hours into the night. And, you know, we just don't want to do that every time going to 12, 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
And I don't think that the presenters want it either. So understand we have a process. It works. It has been working.
yeah, good point. To that, let's wrap up here. You have what you need, Mr. Panos, for instructions for the next meeting?
Yes.
February 10th.
Now, is it your intention to continue to keep these hearings with your regular agenda, or are you going to segregate them out?
Regular
Now, they'll be with our regular agenda. We'll see how it goes, but
Okay,
we're all volunteers here, so.
right.
It would be to keep it with the regular meeting.
I chaired a ZBA for 10 years. I appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you. All right, I think we're ready for a motion, board members.
I move that we continue this to January 10th.
Seconded.
Okay, motion's been made, second, any discussion? Okay, regular voting members and Greg, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Greg,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Matters continued to January 10th. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank
for your
you.
time.
Good night.
Thanks for all your comments. Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna take a little bit of privileges of the board here. On moving on to the next item. We're gonna actually pull up the Town of Wakefield's Permanent Building Committee application. I know that we have some town consultants and other folks that we'd like to send home. Get them up. So
Chip,
Chip-
you gotta stay though.
Speaking of which, Mr. Chair, I need to recuse myself as I am a member of the Permanent Building Committee.
Yeah, I think if you.
Our group is actually presenting to you.
Okay, so why don't, if you just turn off your camera and your microphone, you don't participate, I think that'll be fine, Chip.
Great, will do.
Okay, with that, I'd like to call case 24 Town of Wakefield Permanent Building Committee, 30 to 64 Farm Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail with offices at 607 North Avenue in Wakefield, representing the Wakefield Permanent Building Committee on the exciting new project of Wakefield Memorial High School, the new high school that is going to be built on Farm Street. And we're before you here tonight with our application. We have a full house of team members that I would like to introduce, but before I do that, I think we have a PowerPoint presentation that's going to kind of guide us through. So before I do the introduction, I think it might be helpful if if one of our team members could share that. I think, Craig, are you going to be the one doing that? There we go. Okay, can you blow that up, Craig, at all, or is that is everyone seeing that in full size yet, or no?
Peter's got control of the screen.
Oh, Peter.
Yep.
Yeah, we're still seeing the slide panel on the left, Brian. If you could full screen,
Yeah.
it'd be better.
You can full screen that.
Peter, receipt. Oh,
Just a second. Yeah.
you think we'd be experts by this?
You still working on that, Peter? Or do you think?
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm having some serious screen issues over here.
Can anyone
wanna-
else take it over? Is anyone else on our team that can take that? I might be able to. Let me see. Peter, can you stop sharing for a minute?
Uh,
Let me see if I can do this. Is that better for everybody?
Yeah, thank you.
Does that work? Okay. So I'll do my best with this. Okay. So I'd like to make the introductions. As I mentioned, I'm legal counsel for this project on behalf of the Wakefield Permanent Building Committee. And I was appointed by town council to serve in that role to hopefully shepherd this project through your board. We're excited to present it to you tonight. Our team tonight includes a member of the Public Building Committee. It's the chair, Mr. Joe Bertrand, who has served for a number of years, has given the town incredible service on the Permanent Building Committee, and he is here tonight. Also, the owner's project manager on this project, Left Field. We have representatives from that firm, Lynn Stapleton, Craig DiCarlo, and Tim Baker. And SMMA is our design team and engineering firm. And we have team members from that company, including Helen Fantini Erin Prestilio, Tom Faust, Peter Rebuck, and Megan Collins, who are all here tonight. So if you could go to, well, I guess I'm running it now. So that's our team. And the way we'd like to handle this, I guess, is we're going to give a little introduction. You can see on the left-hand side, and Joe will handle that. Then we're going to go through the status of local approvals, because there are other local approval processes that are involved in this project, and we'd like to let the board know what the status of those are. Then we're going to give you a project overview, and then we're going to get right into the zoning aspects of it and your jurisdiction on this project, which I think you'll realize, and I think is somewhat limited. And then we can talk about next steps, if any are necessary, beyond tonight. That will be for you to determine. So with that said, Joe, if you could unmute and maybe just give the little introduction to the zoning board on behalf of the PBC, and a little bit of the history of how we've gotten here, where you started with the high school project.
Thank you very much, Brian. Good evening, everyone. As indicated, my name is Joe Burchett. I'm the chairman of the Permanent Building Committee. I'm sure you're aware, the school department for many years attempted to get on the MSBA list to get state approval and additional funding for a brand new high school. And that occurred for a number of years, in which they applied for essentially known as a statement of interest, which was denied for many years until town meeting approved a feasibility study. And in 2016, when the Permanent Building Committee received that feasibility study, a new statement of interest was sent to the MSBA. And in December 2019, the MSBA accepted the Wakefield High School as a project in their process. We began working with them through the building committee and the school department, and invited a new feasibility study that has started in March 2021. With that, we were able to procure the services of the OPM, which is indicated there left field, as well as the designer, SMMA. And subsequent to that, we also have approved a construction manager, Bond Construction, which is the same company that built the Galvin. By September 2021, preliminary designs occurred all the way up to March 2022. Then between March and to the end of that year, schematic design was created by the designers through the OPM and the Permanent Building Committee. And there, as you may recall, there was a town meeting in January 2023 in which the project was approved, and eventually the vote on March 11th, 2023. Since that vote has approved the project, the design team and the Permanent Building Committee have worked on, essentially gone through what's called 60% construction documents, and are now in the process of 90% construction documents to be completed by the end of January. So those construction documents are imminent to be sent to the MSBA for their approval as well. And so from that, I'll go back to Brian.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it very much. So I'm going to hand it over to Erin. And Erin, if you could go through the status of local approvals, because you've been involved in all of them.
I have, thank you. So my name is Erin Prestilio. I'm a civil engineer working on this project. It is an exciting project. It's not a small project. And you'll see we've engaged with various folks in the town and the community about this project, but specifically relating to local approvals. And this is a lot of text here. I'm just going to go over what you see. We've received an ORAD from the Conservation Commission back in June of this year. Subsequent to that, we filed the notice of intent for work within the buffer zones of the project. We are currently, we closed the public hearing portion of the project the 5th, last Tuesday, and anticipate having an order of conditions voted on next week. Part of that process included review of the stormwater management design, and been working closely all along with the engineering department to achieve goals for the stormwater management of the site. We've been before the Commission on Disabilities in October. We've been before the Traffic Advisory Commission numerous times, both officially and in kind of a working session with the group, which we found actually really helpful to work through some of the things associated with some of the offsite improvements, which we'll talk about in just a bit. Ultimately approved offsite improvements around about in June of this year. And then we are before you this evening to talk about and address zoning related regulatory issues. Finally, the project will require town meeting approval to revise layouts of the roadway, again, associated with those offsite improvements. So that is the status of where we are at currently with local approvals.
Thank you, Erin.
Sure.
So at this point, we want to go over a project overview, if we may, just to kind of familiarize the board with the location of the project. I mean, you know where the location is, but there's a number of parcels that are involved in it, and to orient you. So when we start talking about some of the zoning components, you will understand and have some context. And then we also quickly want to go through a little bit of the architectural, just to give you a flavor of the building. And we show some floor plans. We don't need to go through those in detail, but just to give you an idea of the scope and context of the project. The project is at, it's numbered 30 to 64 Farm Street, and it's made up of 5 assessors parcels on the Wakefield assessors map, and they're shown here and they're listed. And what's interesting is this project also includes the Woodville School. Because all of these 5 assessors parcels that you see here, they're registered land in Middlesex County Registry of Deeds, and they're all one lot. And Hemlock Road is not, it's really an easement that goes through our property, but it's part of our property. So it looks like it's divided, but it's really not. So for purposes of having this before you, we're including all of these pieces of land that result in our lot for zoning purposes. So when you see our calculations, we're including our calculations not only for the high school, but also for the Woodville School, because they're both on the same property. So we've got to look at those in tandem, and in our analysis will handle it that way. This is the existing conditions, which I think you're pretty familiar with. As I've mentioned, our property, this only shows part of our property. It goes off the screen to the right and it goes off the screen to the left. But the main portion is the high school in the Woodville School. And then we have currently behind the existing high school, the Beasley Oval and the Walsh Field and tennis courts and Landrigan Field and associated parking. This is our proposed condition, and I think you've probably seen this before or have heard about it, that in essence, there's going to be a flip-flop. So the Beasley Oval is now going to go out on Farm Street, and the high school will go to the rear. There might be some few changes in this parking area up here, but for the most part, there's really no changes to the athletic fields, the tennis courts, no change to the Woodville School at all, but it just kind of flips the property. And this is just kind of an overview. So this is a sky view, if you will, and it's looking at it from, this is Farm Street in front of the new field. And this is what Erin talked about, a little bit of a roundabout, which traffic advisory and engineering wants. And that's a possible concept for the project, a very likely concept. And we'll get into that and how that impacts our permitting before you as we go on in the presentation. But as I mentioned, you can see the high school building is now to the rear, and the Woodville's here to the left of the screen, and the athletic fields are really not changing. Erin, I'm going to go back to you on the architecture, if you could, just kind of quickly.
Sure, yes. So you'll see here a view of the main entrance of the school. A major goal of the site design certainly has been to enhance and really prioritize the pedestrian experience. We're making all of these pathways accessible and dedicated spaces for pedestrians right now. The current school is surrounded by essentially vehicular paving. And so that's going to be a dramatic change and improvements to the site design for the high school project. So here you see the main entrance, like I said. This is a main crossing. We have vehicles coming through here, but you can see through the paving materials, paving patterns, curbless. A portion of the road is curbless with bollards for protection. It's really just prioritizing making this a pedestrian feeling space. It's tabletop, so it'll slow traffic down as cars, vehicles enter the site and travel through here. Next slide shows one of the main learning commons that we're planning for the school as well. These spaces are tucked behind the building, really focused on students, teachers, staff, and also can be used off hours for the community as well. The goal is trying to provide a variety of spaces for classes, for small groups, for larger groups. You'll see in the next slide, we're incorporating paving materials, shade structures, planting, to really enhance these spaces and make sure that they're used by the school and community as much as they can. Next slide. I'm going to hand this to Tom.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to give a very broad overview of the floor plans and general program of the building. The building is just under 260,000 square feet. It's designed for 1,000 students. The majority of the building is built and designed around the central dining commons, which is the large yellow space in the center of the level 1 plan to the left. That also acts as the main entry into the building, where you can see the large orange arrow at the top center image there. So everyone comes into the main entrance into the dining commons, and to the left of the dining commons, which is the L-shaped wing, is the academic wing of the building, where we house typical classrooms, engineering, science, art, are all in that area, and that's 3 floors. To the right of the dining commons is where we have the larger program spaces, all the athletic spaces, which includes a large gym with 3 basketball courts, an auxiliary gym, primarily for gymnastics and other various sports, fitness center, multi-purpose room, etc. We also have the performing arts and music department wing, which is the purple color. That includes a 660-seat auditorium right there, and along with a band room, chorus room, and some other large music spaces. There is also the district office is also housed in the building. That's the sort of darker blue-purple color to the right. And the WCAT is also going to be a tenant of the building, and that's in that same general area. Levels 2 and 3, they primarily house more of the academic wing, similar programming, typical classrooms, science rooms. And the large gym is on the 2nd floor. That's the area to the right on level 2. You go to the next slide. These are the elevations. Granted, these are maybe not as easy to read as some of the renderings are, but this just gives a general feel for the overall scale of the building massing. At the image at the bottom is the west elevation, which is the front elevation facing onto Beasley Oval and Farm Street. The main entry is right in the center. Above the main entry is a double height glazed area, sort of a sawtooth design. Behind that is the media center, which is again another piece of the sort of core and heart of the school. And then to the right of that is the academic commons, and to the left is the gym and other athletic spaces. The building is primarily brick with 2 different patterns, a running bond and a stack bond. We also have 2 different metal panels in the building. Again, a little hard to see in the rendering. So in the elevations, easier to see in the renderings. If you go to the next slide, this gives a general overview of the massing, gives a good sense of the 3-level academic wing, which is in the image at the bottom at the right, and then the gym auditorium spaces at the left. You can see the mass of the auditorium at the rear, and the mass of the gym just to the left of the main entry. And I think that's it for a general overview. Yep.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, so this is, I guess, where I come in on the zoning compliance. And I think the board is familiar with this, but just to set the tone, this project is subject to Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 3, which is often referred to as the Dover Amendment. And the Dover Amendment provides that no zoning bylaw may prohibit or require a special permit for the uses of land or structures by educational uses or the expansion of existing structures for the primary, accessory, or incidental purposes of operating an educational facility, provided, however, that the project may be subject to reasonable conditions regarding bulk and height of structures, yard sizes, lot area, setbacks, open space, parking, and building coverage requirements. It's, when I say my position, it's our position that many of the dimensional and parking requirements under the bylaw, including but not limited to the sections we're going to be presented tonight, are unreasonable when applied to the new Wakefield Memorial High School. And we'll get into that as we go on. This is, I want to show, this is important for this project because, you know, recently the vocational school was before your board and it was approved. In this project, you might think of it as a little bit is similar, but it's really not, because this project is driven by the fact that this property, and you can see our property highlighted in blue here on the right, is in the municipal overlay district in the town of Wakefield. So this is the kind of the shape with my cursor of those 5 parcels that we talked about. They're all located within the municipal overlay district, which is a special zoning map for town-owned property in the town of Wakefield, which gives it special standards under the bylaw, which I will get into on the next slide. So 190-34A of the Wakefield zoning bylaw states the dimensional regulations set forth in this article applicable to every lot of land in the municipal district shall be the same as the dimensional regulations applicable to the zoning district surrounding such lot of land is set forth in Table 2, the Table of Dimensional Regulations, except in the case of a lot of land in the municipal district, which is adjacent to 2 or more zoning districts, the dimensional regulations applicable to such lot of land shall be the same as the dimensional regulations applicable to the least restrictive zoning district. So what that basically means is whatever zones our lot touches, the least restrictive zone will apply to our lot. Well, we're very fortunate because this is the zoning map, and you can see we are surrounded, we're adjacent to the residential district, but we're also adjacent at one point to the business zoning district up at this point here. So if you read this, and I've gone through it with town council, the table of the dimensional requirements for this lot for purposes of this project are the business zoning district regulations, not the single residence regulations. So the way this has gotten before your board is we filed with the building inspector. We pointed out to the building inspector our deficiencies in the zoning, non-compliance. We asked him to make a determination as the building inspector and zoning administrator that to apply those non-conforming components to this project would not be reasonable or would be unreasonable. What he did is exactly what he did with the vocational school. He said, I'm not going to say I really disagree with you or you know, or I don't think you're right, but I'm not going to make an opinion. I'm going to pass it off to the Zoning Board of Appeals and let them do it. So what I'm going to do is, in essence, give you a friendly denial of your request to make it an appealable event, to allow you to take it to the board under 40A and section 190-65 of our bylaw, which allows appeals of building inspectors' decisions or lack of decisions. So what we've done on the next slide, we've done a zoning summary on the table, and we thought this would be a good place to start. But before I go through the table, it's important to take a look at the map on the left-hand side. because we've talked about the roundabout, which isn't there now, but is very likely to be. But we wanted to permit this project before your board now, but we weren't, 100% sure that it will end up with the roundabout. We decided we have to present it both ways to your board. So we're asking you, in essence, at the end of the day, when you make a finding, to consider it on both counts with a change in the lot line to allow for the roundabout, or without a change in the lot line if the roundabout doesn't go in. So this blue line is our existing lot today as the streets are laid out in the town. The red line is the possible line which could result. And our zoning table on the right is reflective of both possibilities. So as I mentioned, we're going by the business zoning district for our regulations. So, we can kind of go through this table. And as you look at it to set the tone, at the top where it says required or / allowed, and then you see a column existing layout, existing lot line. That's how the high school and the Woodville School are today, the old high school, the existing building. And then we have proposed layout with the existing lot line. That would be as if the blue line stayed and there wasn't a roundabout. And then proposed layout, possible lot line, which would be the red. So to go through this table, the minimum lot area in the business district is none. We have 51.71 acres of land, except with the proposed possible layout, it will go down to 51.8 because the town meeting action that Erin talked about would be a transfer of this land from the school to the general town of Wakefield land to allow it to then become right-of-way use rather than school use. Minimum frontage is 40 feet in the business district. Currently, it's 46.17. And proposed, if it doesn't change, 46.17, it will go down a little bit to 46. It would actually go up because of the way that the lines turn. It will go up with the proposed possible layout on the frontage. Floor area ratio is 1.5 with the 51 and change acres. It's not even close. Easily met. Minimum front yard setback, you can see it's met in all cases. And the reason we do this, we reference high school sometimes in Woodville because it's depending on which building is closest to the applicable lot line. The minimum north side yard setback, that is, again, there's no requirement, so it's easily met. We're talking over 500 feet. The south side setback, because that's adjacent to a residential district on that side, there's a 15-foot requirement. And that is, again, easily met on all counts. Minimum rear yard setback, again, because of adjacent to a residential district, so 15 feet, otherwise it will be 0. But in any event, again, we're meeting that requirement and not seeking any relief. Building height, because we're going by the business district, 60 feet is allowed, and it's currently 35, but with the proposal, it's going to be 55 in either case, and it will meet the requirement. Maximum building coverage, 80%, not even close on any count, and minimum open area, the same thing. Then we look at the parking requirements, and this was kind of a calculation that we had to spend some time on. And whoops, sorry about that. There we go. So before we get into the table, let's talk about how we determine the requirements. So with school as a principal use, the parking requirements is 2 per 3 staff members, plus 1 per 3 students of driving age, unless car use is prohibited, or 1 per 6 seats in the largest place of assembly, whichever is greater. So you can see the calculations that were done down here. And what we determined was that the required parking is 253. Currently, there's 443 parking spaces. We're going to go up to 488 in either case, no matter how the lines are adjusted. So we easily meet the parking requirement. There's some issues on the landscaping, which we'll get into on the relief that we're, specific relief that we're asking for, or specific determination of being unreasonable. Mr. Chair, if I can ask you, are there any questions at this point before I go on?
Yeah, board members, anybody? Jim?
Yeah. So Brian, in the plan that's before us, where there are two different property lines, one with a roundabout and one without.
Correct.
Why isn't that far left side, which was under the roundabout, why isn't that left-hand corner, which is part of the next parcel, why isn't that picked up and really when you swap land basically here, that ends up in the school property, which was originally a drive. Why isn't that considered in all of this?
Well, this roundabout is also going to result in a little bit of a relocation of Hemlock Road.
I understand that, but you've
Okay.
got this, what used to be Hemlock Road
Yeah.
is now in the field next to it on the left.
Well, this, you talking about
Right
the blue-
there,
You're
right
talking about
there.
the blue line. Yeah.
No, I'm not talking about the line. I'm talking about the left-hand side of that particular roundabout, which is now a piece of the property. Used to be a road, is now a piece of the property.
So, Aaron or team members, do you understand this?
Yeah,
Right.
it's that triangular kind of piece of the
Right,
that will
right,
be
with a-
landscape. Mhm.
Right.
What was the question about it?
Well, why isn't that part now, it's a trade-off of piece of the property, basically. Roundabout, you're giving some land over to the town, but then the town should be giving you that little triangular piece with a curve in it as part of the property going to the school.
You
Oh,
talking about this piece, Jim?
no, it's the landscape on the other side of the road.
Oh, over here.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I can't speak to
They might
how
do
the
that, but
school,
it-
right,
it-
or the
It's only,
town will
it's
resolve.
only gonna increase our area. It's really not gonna have an
Yeah.
impact on the analysis.
No.
I mean, they might end up doing that at some point.
But I mean, the reality is it becomes part of the school property because you're, in the trade of property, and it looks like the red line is going to be a larger area than that particular area, but it's going to end up back in the school property because you're giving the town basically a new route.
Yeah, I mean, it might end up being a little bit of adjustment over here, but it's not gonna be, it's gonna be de minimis.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's try to stick with what's gonna be before us.
I mean, that has to be finely designed, that's it's gonna have to go before town meeting. So who's gonna give who what? I don't know at this point. Anything else, Mr. Chair?
No, any other questions? Now let's move.
All right, so now, as far as the non-compliance goes, and we submitted this as part of our application. SMMA did a very detailed analysis. I worked with them on the zoning compliance. And there's really, the majority of this is compliant. When you look at the parking requirements, the fact that we're in the municipal district, which, the fact that the fact that we can be in the business district regulations for the dimensional requirements really have no impact on the parking. So we have to comply with the parking, and that's why we need some relief on this. So I'll go through the non-compliance and in our thoughts on this of why it would not be reasonable or practical or necessary to require compliance with these. The first section is 190 C 190-31 C.1 that prohibits parking in the front yards. So the project will not comply with this requirement. The front yard for the site is the area between the building and Farm Street, which you saw where now the field is going to be, and it's going to have parking for the school. It's not feasible to meet this requirement for the school without having parking in the front yard. It's also a pre-existing condition. There already is parking in the front yard at the existing high school. Also, that same section prohibits driveways from exceeding 20 feet in width. So in the single residence district, because for parking purposes, we have to look at it as being in the single residence district. That special provision in the bylaw only again applies to table 2 to put us in the business district. So the project will not comply with this requirement. The school will have 2 driveways, one on Hemlock Road that is 24 feet in width, and one on Farm Street that is 36 feet in width. The Hemlock Road driveway will be 2 lanes. It has to be in and out. And the Farm Street driveway will be 3 lanes, one in, one for left and one out. So the Farm Street driveway having 3 lanes, there's absolutely no way that can comply with a 20-foot requirement. The Farm Street driveway is designed to accommodate heavy traffic in the morning and the PM peak hours to avoid excessive vehicle queuing at the site. So it's necessary. It was also reviewed in detail by our traffic advisory committee and they supported it. The school's upper lot located off of Hemlock Road will have 2 driveways. Each will be 24 feet in width. And all driveways are designed to accommodate the larger vehicles such as buses, schools, school vans, and emergency vehicles that also need to access the site. So it would certainly, in our opinion, be unreasonable to have to meet that requirement. Section 190-31K is lot shape. We put this in here. I would argue it's probably, I don't think it's really applicable, but we put it in as a belt and suspenders. It wouldn't be reasonable to require that on such a big lot, 51 acres. And also, I would suggest that it's a grandfathered lot anyways, because this lot was in existence well before that requirement of the zoning bylaw went into effect. 190-37E1, requiring that surfaced areas off-street parking shall be set back a minimum of 7.5 feet from all buildings, and that open parking areas shall be separated from the street line by a landscape strip of not less than 15 feet. We will not require with that. The project won't comply. The school's upper lot located off of Hemlock Road, which is really in an isolated area across from the football field, will have a portion of the landscape buffer that is less than 15 feet. And all we're doing up there is really proposing to maintain the pre-existing condition. Section 190-37E.2, requiring that at least 5% of the interior of the parking lots with 40 or more parking spaces shall be landscaped. Project will not comply with this requirement. The school's parking lot and the front of the school on the south side of the lot will not have any interior landscaping. It's designed as a throughway, as you probably saw from the presentation, and not really not a parking on either side of the drive aisle. The upper lot located off of Hemlock Road will have an interior landscape of 3.2%. The current lot is non-conforming already at 4.5%. And again, that's an isolated lot that really nobody ever sees. It's really just used for events at Landrigan Field or overflow parking for the high school. All other lots will meet the 5% requirement. And due to the parking demand of the new school, the project will be expanding the lots and using existing footprint to minimize disturbance. As you know, we've got excess parking spaces. It's always good to have them on a project like this one, especially with different events that might happen at the school. And then finally, section 190-37I.1, requiring the driveway may not exceed 30 feet in width at the street line and shall not be spaced closer than 100 feet to a driveway serving the same lot. Project will not comply with this requirement. Project will have 2 driveways, one on Hemlock Road, 24 feet in width, and as I mentioned, the 36-foot width on Farm Street. The Hemlock Road driveway will be approximately 40 feet measured at the property line to accommodate vehicular lanes and provide adequate radius for maneuvering. The Farm Street driveway will be approximately 38 feet measured at the property line to accommodate the vehicular lanes that we discussed and provide adequate radius for maneuvering. The school's upper lot located off of Hemlock Road will have 2 driveways. The western drive will be maintained, which is approximately 34 feet. That exceeds the the maximum width. And the proposed eastern driveway will be approximately 35 feet measured at the property line to accommodate the vehicular access, safety and emergency vehicles, etc. So, with all due respect to the board, and I think you know, your jurisdiction on this project is limited, very limited. This is not site plan approval like you have on many projects. This is an application to overturn a non-decision or a denial of the building inspector on these limited issues as they relate to the project. That is what the Dover Amendment is about. And we think that from what we have presented there, that it would be unreasonable to make this project comply with aspects of the zoning bylaw, including those presented that it does not comply with. And with that said, we're happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Before I turn over the board, we did receive some correspondence from town departments. One, a letter from December 12th from Chief Sullivan. Brian, has your team seen these?
Yes.
Okay. So just for folks on the board and the public, the first couple paragraphs are just about systems that he wants installed in the building. Another note about if there does need to be blasting, it just needs to be coordinated with the fire department. Locations of fire hydrant. Talking about raising the conditions for tearing down the old building. And then he talked about the access road leading up to school should be a minimum of 24 feet to one of the relief that you're seeking, that he's seeking that as well as part of it. There's another piece of communication from DPW. It's lengthy, but every comment has been addressed, so DPW has signed off on all the issues that went before them. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to the board and then also remind them, and I hope people, you know, this is different from, as Brian described, what we're doing. If we can stick to those specific issues that are before us and try to be disciplined about that, that'd be much appreciated. Any questions or comments from the board? Joe?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Brian, real quick, do you have a plan that shows these zoning issues? Or
like each specific one?
I mean, where it happens, like which I feel like on
I feel
like on the Volk they had a quick plan that showed like here we have discrepancy here, we have, you know, this driveway here, and it was just, I don't know if you had something prepared tonight.
I think we can help you with that, Joe. So hang on a second. Yeah. So can everybody see the screen?
Yeah, I mean, you could blow it up, I guess, a little bit.
Okay, let me try to do that. Hold on. Why I changed it. You might have to just work with this. That's okay. Because I can you let me try to do this and see if it's adequate.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a huge deal.
I want to, you know, we're happy.
In the lower right hand corner, there's a zoom in, zoom out button.
Oh, thank you.
You got it.
That worked. Okay, so we can go to, okay. So the first non-compliance, Joe, was 190-31C1, which doesn't allow parking in the front yard. And, you know, we've already got it in the front yard of the Woodville School.
Yeah.
So we're really not changing anything on that. But in the existing building, as I mentioned, it's already happening. So we're actually we're really improving that circumstance over what's happening today.
Mm-hmm.
But as you can see,
yeah.
but it doesn't meet the requirement. Okay, so that's that. And then the driveways shall not exceed 30 feet in width, as we talked about. So this is where we have an issue with this. on this driveway. We have an issue with this on this driveway. And then the ones I'm talking about on the upper lot are up here, as I mentioned, across from the football field. So in a residential district, you can't have a driveway more than 20 feet wide. That's not practical for a school.
No, yeah, no, I understand.
And that was the same relief I think that you gave to the vocational school. The next one was the irregularity shape of the lot. So our lot is crazy shaped because you can see it here. It's like a kidney. And you know, so if you do the calculation, it doesn't meet the requirement. This is an existing lot. The vocational school asked for relief on this. Because they did, we put it in. I don't think it's needed. This is a grandfathered lot. This lot was in existence well before that lot shape requirement ever went in place in the town of Wakefield. The next one relates to the 15-foot buffer. The 15-foot buffer requirement as you come out the street, and we talked about this. This is up on the Hemlock Road parking lot. We don't have. There's supposed to be like a 15-foot buffer here, and we don't make it. The school's upper lot located off of Hemlock Road will have a portion of landscape buffer that is less than 15 feet. So that's where that area of non-compliance is.
You're not even touching that lot anyway, so I'm surprised.
Aaron, we're doing a few little changes in there, right?
We're
Yes.
expanding that line.
That lot's
Okay.
being expanded.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other part of it is was the 5% landscaping, Joe, and that's where I talked about that. You know, does it really matter in this lot? I mean, would it be reasonable to require that here when it's really just for a football field? I mean, nobody can see this. And even people that are, you know, even the general public, when they're going to go to events at the school, this is needed for overflow parking, but most of the parking is going to occur down on the main lot.
Yeah,
And,
no, I appreciate that. I just
yep,
think it
and
would
then
be
the final
better.
one was, it says driveways may not exceed 30 feet in width at the street line. And I think, you know, all of these driveways exceed the 30 feet because they have to, as traffic advisory had said. Just even for emergency vehicles for a high school, they got to be able to get in and get out, and buses, etc.
Yeah,
So
no.
Does that help?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's all.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Okay, hearing and seeing none at this point, I will open it up for public comment. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to comment on this proposal? If so, please use the raise hand function in Zoom. Mr. Jillian King.
Yeah, hi. I think the traffic circle or the roundabout, as you're calling it, is going to be a really bad idea. It's going to be really hard to get across. There are tons of pedestrians there with the school letting out and the Woodville down the street. I mean, trying to cross a traffic circle is virtually impossible. Like, have you ever tried to cross the traffic circle at the top of the lake? You can't. How are the kids going to get across the road safely? I feel like there's another way to direct the traffic there.
Okay.
I can respond to that quickly, Mr. Chair. Your board is
Sure.
not being asked to approve that. It's not within your jurisdiction. It's just, it's a possibility that might happen. So, you know, we're just.
So if your team could just take that into consideration as you're working with TAC.
Yeah, the recommendation, if I may, the recommendation was made by the Department of Public Works to cause traffic slow down in the area, essentially calming traffic, and the traffic advisory advised that as well. And as well as that, there will be signals for walking if that turns out to be the case.
Okay.
But we'll take that into account. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Hearing and seeing none, back to the board.
Unless
pleasure
is
of the
it.
board. I think we're ready to make a motion here.
Sure, I'll excuse me, I'll make that motion and these findings and the motion were based on the plans presented tonight by SMMA dated
Oh.
November.
Greg, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Mr. King has been, I'm just gonna let him have a quick comment. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I was out of the room for a moment and my daughter spoke at the time. I just want to reaffirm my view that the traffic management on that corner in front of the high school is absolutely necessary. Rectifying the roads so they all come together at the same point would be a very good idea. They don't now, as you know. Hemlock Road comes down probably 30 feet or so away from where Nahant Street comes out. The traffic circle, though, although it might be very vehicle friendly and certainly speeds the circulation of automobiles, is very pedestrian unfriendly. People walk to school on Farm Street. People also walk recreationally on Farm Street. They jog. I see it because I live facing Farm Street. Even though I'm on Old Nahant, I'm right on that corner. The 15 or 20 kids every afternoon walk home from the high school on Farm Street, and they go up to Oak Street or to the development roads off of Old Nahant Road. Every afternoon, I see joggers. I see women walking dogs. It's very difficult to cross a road where there's a traffic circle. Any of you have ever tried to cross the traffic circle at the top of the lake would know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You
So,
must
Mr. King,
circle.
Mr.
Yes.
King, I don't mean to interrupt you, but there were a couple, the project team answered this question. First of all, that traffic circle configuration is not before this board tonight.
But I want to surface the issue nonetheless.
Yeah, no, and which I certainly appreciate, and which is why I wanted to let you speak. But Mr. Bertrand, who's the chair of the Permanent Building Committee, also mentioned that there'd be signalization at the traffic circle if in fact that solution is implemented to help with pedestrians making the way.
It's absolutely essential. If you've ever been on the Fresh Pond Parkway in Cambridge, there are two traffic circles within about a half a mile of each other on that. And there's a lot of pedestrian activity there as well. People like to jog and walk around there. And there's a big park that abuts that portion of the Fresh Pond Parkway where those traffic circles are located. They have button managed stoplights on both sides of both of those traffic circles so the pedestrians can cross the road. But you can't cross the road where there's a traffic circle because the cars never stop moving. If you're going to put the traffic circle in, you also, in effect, have to sign on to putting stoplights on this side and the other side of the traffic circle and on the Nahant Street and probably on Hemlock Road as well, with buttons to activate them when people want to cross the road. Not blinking signs like you've got in front of currently the Public Works Department downtown, or it's not Public Works, it's the Municipal Light Department. That doesn't do it. That will not stop the cars. It might notify them that someone wants to cross the road, but it won't stop them. You're going to have to put up lights. And if you're going to go to that much trouble, you might as well just put a stoplight in. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Okay, thank you. So I'm sure that the members of the project team heard you, Mr. King. So Greg, I'm sorry to have interrupted you, but please proceed.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, so I'm gonna, the findings and motions that I make are all based on the plan submitted tonight by SMMA, dated November 20th, 2023. However, with sheets A104, A201, A220, and A221 revised as of December 7th, 2023. And again, the motions to follow this are based on the following findings. One, that the applicant is proposing a new Wakefield Memorial High School on the assessor parcels that were referenced in the application and referenced tonight, constituting the subject lot and property shown on the SMMA plans. Two, pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 3, known as the Dover Amendment, the Wakefield zoning bylaw may not restrict the use of the land or structures excuse me, for educational purposes, and the Wakefield Memorial High School does qualify as such educational purposes. Furthermore, nonprofit educational uses are allowed by right in all zoning districts pursuant to the Wakefield zoning bylaw. Three, also pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 3, again, the Dover Amendment, the Wakefield Memorial High School project may be subject to reasonable conditions regarding bulk and height of structures, yard sizes, lot area setbacks, open space, parking, and building coverage requirements. Pursuant to section 190-34A of the Wakefield zoning bylaw, the business zoning district dimensional regulations are applicable to this Wakefield Memorial High School project. The applicant has presented to the building inspector and now to this board provisions of the Wakefield zoning bylaw that the Wakefield Memorial High School project does not meet, shown on, I think it was slide 19 tonight. The applicant has taken the position that it would be unreasonable to require the Wakefield Memorial High School project to meet said provisions or any other provisions of the bylaw that would prevent the project from being constructed as shown on the plans, on the SMMA plans presented. As stated in a letter to the applicant dated November 22nd, 2023, the building inspector denied the applicant's request to decide this matter and has deferred it to this board tonight. The applicant has requested that this board find that it would be unreasonable to require the Wakefield Memorial High School project to comply with all the requirements of the Wakefield zoning bylaw, including but not limited to those provisions not being complied with as delineated in the application and presented tonight, and thus said project should not be required to comply with those provisions or any other provisions of the bylaw that the project does not meet. The applicant has then requested that this board overturn the building inspector's decision of denial as stated in his letter to the applicant. Based on those findings, I move as follows: that the board overturn the building inspector's decision of denial as stated in his letter to the applicant dated November 22nd, 2023. In doing so, the board finds that it would be unreasonable to require the Wakefield Memorial High School project to comply with any bulk and height of structures, yard sizes, lot areas, setbacks, open space, parking, and building coverage requirements of the Wakefield zoning bylaw, including but not limited to those provisions of the Wakefield zoning bylaw not being complied with as delineated in the application and as presented tonight. Thus, the Wakefield Memorial High School project shall not be required to comply with those provisions not being complied with as delineated in the application and as presented tonight, or any other provisions of the bylaw that said project does not meet, and said project is approved under the Dover Amendment and may proceed notwithstanding any such compliance. Furthermore, as pointed out tonight, this applies to both the layout of the existing lot line and with the layout of the possible lot line. And that's my motion.
I will second that motion.
Okay, a motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, voting members on this will be Greg, Joe, Jim, Mickey, and myself. Greg,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Mickey,
Yes.
I vote yes. Decision's unanimous. Thank you for your thoughtful presentation. Good luck with the project. Just a quick question before you let you go. If it all goes well, when would it open?
Students will go in January. I'm gonna get 27, right, Helen?
Correct.
I
Yeah.
almost said 26. January 27th, it'll be completed. We'll be starting in the spring with beginning work in the spring of 24.
Great. Thank you very much, and thanks for all
Thank
your
you.
effort
Thank
on
you
this.
very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Okay, with that, next up is with apologies to the Pascantillis if they are here. Cases 24-21, 24-22, 24-23 at 16 West Park Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Attorney Brian McGreal here on behalf of the applicants. And with me tonight on their behalf is Jeff Moretti, who is our architect on this project. So we will be presenting tonight. I will take the lead and Jeff will be happy to answer any questions that the board might have. We have 3 applications involved. We have a finding request which deals with the addition that they want to build onto the structure. Then we have a special permit for an accessory apartment, and then a variance for non-compliance with a couple of sections that have become typical on the accessory apartments. as it relates to putting an addition on for an accessory apartment. And this one, because it, non-compliance with lot width, one of the requirements under the bylaw. So let me start by sharing my plan. I think I'll start, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, with the addition.
No, please go ahead.
Okay. You just load the plan. Second. So you're gonna have to, I'm gonna leave it like this, because when I try to rotate it, it keeps popping me out for some reason. But in any event, this is pretty straightforward. On the left side, you'll see West Park Drive. This lot has 100 feet of frontage. It meets that requirement. It meets the lot area requirement, which is one of the requirements for an accessory apartment. But the main purpose of really showing this to you is for the addition. It's a small addition that's going off the back of the house. It's a single-story addition. The reason for the finding is because of the lot width. Because currently, you'll see this line coming down, the lot width is 87.9. The required is 100, so it's non-conforming. And we're gonna make that worse because this lot tapers in as you go back. So the lot width here will become 81.4. So we need a finding that it intensifies the existing nonconformity of lot width, but it's not substantially more detrimental. So that is the first form of relief we're looking at for the addition. It doesn't meet the setback requirement. You can see it's 14.9. 15 is required, but the current house is 8.4. So it's not intensifying that nonconformity. It's actually, it's more conforming than the existing condition today. So that's that aspect of it.
Brian, you said single story. Is it single or two-story?
The addition is a single-story addition, Joe.
Because it says two-story on it.
Oh, the addition. Jeff, can you comment on that and clarify? That's why I got you here.
No, it's definitely a single story addition. The main house is definitely two-story, it's a split entry. But we plan on just doing a single story in the rear.
Yeah, we'll correct that plan, Joe. That's a point well taken, just to clarify it. So we would get a new plan for the board showing it as one story.
Thank you.
I'm just making a note now. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay. And then, as I mentioned, they are looking to do an accessory apartment. And Jeff, can you tell the board what the living situation is gonna be?
Yeah, so basically it's just one bedroom.
No, I'm talking about
living area.
Jeff, I'm talking about family members.
Oh, family members, basically their son owns the property and they're gonna be living with the son. So it's the father and mother
in the accessory apartment
with the son. Yes.
Okay, good. I just want to clarify that for the board. So this is the addition in the back. This is where the accessory apartment will go. It's got a kitchen, living area, bath, and a bedroom in the back. As Jeff mentioned, it's single story. The house is 2 stories. The current basement is a family room for the main house and a 2-car garage. It's kind of like a split level a little bit. And as far as the calculations go, the total floor area is 2806. The accessory apartment area will be 654. It meets the requirement of 300 square feet, and it's 23% of the total area. So it's under the required 25%. So it complies with that. So what we're asking for is we have an application for the special permit for the accessory, and we're requesting a variance from 2 sections of 190-22 F, and those are the lot width doesn't comply, It says accessory apartments may be created only in single-family dwellings which are located in lots meeting the minimum lot area and width requirements. So we've got the area, but not the width. And then the second thing is the accessory apartment is number 7. The accessory apartment shall not involve the extension or enlargement of your principal dwelling, except to provide access or egress. Nor shall it change the single-family characteristic of the dwelling. I think this is certainly not changing the characteristic, but it does involve an enlargement. So we have a variance request for those. Happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We could stop sharing then. Members of the board, questions, comments? Jim?
Well, I think everybody knows where I'm gonna go on this one. You know, I see no reason why, although I did in one particular case, why we should building an addition first and then recalculating just to get the building up there and running. It seems like there's an opportunity to go through the normal process. I don't have any problem with a building being built. But I do have a problem with immediately turning it into a unit, basically. So that's where I'm coming from, and I'm sure you guys have heard me on this before, so I won't make much of it.
Okay, Greg?
Yeah, I just want to put out there that I respectfully, completely disagree with Jim. I would rather the applicant come to us for a variance of that section and to, you know, come to us with the whole plan of building an addition to put in an in-law rather than building an addition without a variance, having it built, and then 1 week later coming to us and say, now we're going to put an in-law in it. What's the difference? I'd rather know the whole plan to begin with. So I'd going forward, I'd rather see it this way, to come to us asking for a variance. Doesn't mean it's going to get approved every time, but at least we know the whole plan going in, and it's not just, you know, an addition that because of some weird quirkiness of the bylaw gets automatically built and then come to us and say, look how great we are. It's not, this apartment or dwelling unit doesn't require an addition, although it technically did.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Greg on that. I'd also say I grew up on this street, and it's not unusual. This is not going to be inconsistent with the character of any, you know, going back to when I lived there as a young man. It's going to be very consistent with what's happened in the neighborhood over time, for sure. So I really have no problem with this, and I agree with Greg. I'm glad they come in first, and then it seems a little backwards the other way to me. Anybody else?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, seeing no further board comments or questions, is there any members of the public still with us that came to comment on this proposal? Hearing and seeing none. Brian, did they get any comments from neighbors?
No. I mean, just because it really, it's one story and it's in the back. If you look at, I went down to the neighborhood, it has like no impact anywhere. There's like a lot of separation between the properties, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. A
Brian,
lot of
did we
people
just
took
do
those.
one?
Yeah.
Just
Go
do
ahead.
one down the street, Brian? Like
I'm
a couple
sorry, Joe?
houses? Did we just do one of these, like 3 houses
Yeah,
down?
yeah, you did. Yeah.
All right, sounds familiar.
Yeah. I think,
This is what happens, it grows.
Point of information, I think you're gonna see a change to this section of the bylaw, right, Joe? This is
I
like.
was gonna wait till other matters, but we're gonna actually think, we talked about deleting that whole line, just getting rid of it.
Yeah, the bylaw review committee's all over this. They know what's going on. They know that it's a real a hardship for people to have to go through the process. So I think they're gonna really simplify it.
Yeah, and I think as healthcare gets worse and worse and more expensive, you know, what concerns me about well, forget it, is what happens after.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the
Yeah,
question is,
to Jim's point, this grows. to be honest, I'm okay with that. And for what happens after, I almost don't have concerns about it with knowing what some of my friends have gone through and looking for places to live. You know, I think we talk about this a lot for this is more policy. I'll be very quick. We talk about these a lot for, you know, older families to live in, but I know that I've had friends go through hell looking for even apartments to live in, and luckily have found places to live just like this. So I'm happy that for this to grow.
So, Tom,
Yep,
pass this off to Mickey.
will do. Okay, and I neglected to read a couple letters in we got from town departments. One's from the DPW. The only comment is that they want, Brian, have you seen this? They want to submit the I-9 fee
Yes.
for the new bedroom. Fire department wrote in, they have no comment, no objection to the proposal. So with that, I think we're ready for a motion.
So what do you want to do first? The finding?
Yes.
Okay, so I move that we find that the addition as presented to us this evening does not increase the nonconformity or exasperate the nonconformity that's already existing.
It does, Chip. It does exasperate it, but it's
I
not.
thought it didn't.
No, it does. It goes.
Because of what?
Well, it's tricky because the lot width now, it goes down.
Because of lot width?
Yes.
The setbacks, it doesn't exasperate any of the
No, but
setbacks.
it exasperates the nonconformity of the lot width because currently under the bylaw, it's 87.9.
So it does increase the I'll
Yes.
adjust my motion to say
Thank
that it does adjust, it does increase the nonconformity. However, with that increase, it is non-detrimental to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
I'll second that adjusted motion.
Okay, so voting members will be Chip, Mickey, Joe, myself, and is that five? 1, 2,
Me.
and Greg. So
It's getting late.
yeah, it is. On the motion, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Mickey,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
I vote yes. That's unanimous.
Okay, I move that we grant the special permit to allow an accessory apartment as presented to us this evening.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, same voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Mickey,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
and I vote yes. That also is unanimous. Chip,
I move that we grant the variance under 190-22F for lot width. And what was the other one, Brian?
Number 7, the extension or enlargement of the principal.
Oh, yeah, for lot width, and number 7 for allowing the extension and enlargement of the primary residence to include the in-law apartment.
Second.
okay, same voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yeah.
Mickey,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
and I vote yes. That too is unanimous.
I also move that we allow a letter to be presented in regards for as compared to for a surety, however we word that, Brian.
Yes. Yep.
Correct.
Joe? You guys
Seconded.
second that? Okay, same voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Mickey,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Luck.
Okay, moving right on to other matters. We have to discuss and vote on a Scrivener's affidavit for 0 Cherry Lane.
Good to me.
Gail, did this go out to everybody?
Yep.
Everyone got it?
I saw it.
Okay,
Yes, it did.
all right.
This never dies.
Well, let's give it, does anyone have any problem? It's obviously very straightforward. There was just a minor error in the.
Tom kind of said we need to vote yes for it, right?
Yeah.
So
That
I
makes
move
sense.
I move that we allow the Scrivener's affidavit as presented to us this evening.
Seconded.
Okay, regular voting members and Greg, go ahead. Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yeah.
Jim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
I vote yes. So that's approved. Okay, other matters, I have a couple things, but Joe, did you said you want to bring up something?
Well, I was gonna bring up that, the accessory, that we just talked about. The accessory use of the, in-law apartment that we're gonna probably get, nix that whole line item about adding to a, putting additions on, but it's
Are you
still,
gonna
he's
keep it
gonna,
as
he's gonna.
family though?
What's that?
Are you proposing to keep it as family members?
I think we might
So
mix
that we
that
don't
too.
do create two families everywhere?
So we were supposed to have a meeting 2 weeks ago. I get moved till this Monday, so Attorney Bobowski was gonna write it up, and then we're gonna take a second stab at it. I can't remember, Brian, did we talk about, I think we might even got rid of the whole in-law thing.
No, what they're talking, no decision's been made. There's been a discussion, right, Joe, that potentially consider not restricting it to family members.
Yeah, we did talk about that.
You could.
Really?
Jim, a lot of, I think it's gonna be the next mandate that you're gonna see from the state legislature.
Let's just rezone the whole town for
I'm
two
not
or
saying
three
I'm for it.
families, really?
I'm not saying I'm advocating for it. I'm just telling you, most cities and towns are going that way. And I bet you in the next year, the state legislature, just like they did with this MBTA, is gonna legislate a requirement for it.
So, and from someone who lived in California where these are a lot more common, it's completely different than a two-family. It's not the size requirements, the fitting on the lot. It's not just making everything a second house. It's very different. It's not just saying now you can make this a complete. You can put another huge unit on this lot. It's a lot smaller. There's size restrictions.
Oh, you mean it's not gonna be 100 units in one lot? Is that what you're telling me?
correct? Yes.
The big problem with doing it though is if you do that, you're gonna be chasing your 40B numbers because now those count as market rate units. So now it's gonna hurt you 10%.
Then let's talk to the state about actually correcting it.
Yeah, they allow you to, but they want you to declare it as like an affordable unit, which nobody will ever do. So, but if you read about it, you can Google it, Greg, and read about it. It's an issue.
No, understood, but instead of just saying one thing, I mean, one thing exacerbates another thing, then, maybe state legislature should actually do their job and look at everything as a whole.
Well,
They're not going to, but
I don't know if you want them to, because half of them will want rent control anyway, so,
We're gonna pave over.
not
the
a
front
landlord.
yard- Are we gonna pave over the front yards too, so all these people can park there?
Jim, see what happens?
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'm getting tired.
yeah, all right, so that, we're looking at that.
Poor Gail's ready to go to bed. Let's go.
Yep.
That and the roles and responsibilities, that email I sent out earlier, we didn't discuss that yet, so I'm gonna talk to Bobowski about that on Monday.
Okay.
So I don't
Well,
really
we
have anything
do
on-
have, Joe, you've seen our rules, right?
Yeah, it's like one paragraph.
We have more rules than that.
It's not much. There is it's in there, but
Okay.
it's not as defined as like one of the ones up in Concord, but he gave me a couple samples from different towns that do it, and they get more in depth.
Okay. So if people want to read that and then send any comments to Joe, the meeting's on Monday, Joe?
Yeah, but like I said, I'm gonna pick Bobowski's brain on Monday, but that's not all that's on board for Monday, but that's just one of the things that came up about a month ago.
Okay.
Well, I guess I'm going at the right time.
Well, Jim, which is a transition to one of the things I want
really?
to talk about.
Really?
With Jim's departure, we're obviously losing a ton. And we're gonna miss him very much, but a lot of cities and towns force the bigger projects to do peer review. So I talked to Gail with about for a minute, and I don't know if there is internal capacity at the town. I'd like to just the freedom, if the board is okay with it, to at least just bring it up with Ben and then maybe eventually Steve or Tom Mullen to see what the logistics of that would look like. Because I think we're gonna need some architectural support, because we're never gonna find someone, in my mind, that's been willing to do all that Jim has.
I have a company that will do it. It's called JM LLC.
Hey, we'll double your pay.
You know, my wife wants to know what I'm gonna do in this next phase. And I figured there's enough old ladies running around there. I got plenty to do.
All right, so are
Yeah,
people comfortable with
I
that?
give you total permission to figure it out.
Okay.
And I agree with you, Tom.
Okay. And then the other thing I'd like to do is I'd like to, when Jim officially resigns, I'd like to send a letter on behalf of the board to, well, however Steve would want to do it, I'm not wed to anything, but get the message to the town council that we'd love to have another architect on here, not just, I think we all bring valuable perspectives, but losing Jim is losing that, perspective, I think is a big loss too. So are people comfortable with that? If not, I'll shut my mouth, but
Well, I think one thing we should do is start thinking about if we know anybody. Right? That we gotta do it ourselves, because town council is gonna, I can guarantee you, town council is probably gonna have an issue with trying to pin, and what happens if no architects apply?
right.
I think we gotta try to source a little bit ourselves.
I certainly think it doesn't hurt to at least write that letter and say, hey, our priorities are.
Right.
There are a couple members of the permanent building committee that are architects. One of whom is the husband of Tom is a good member of the PBC and, might be interested. He's getting more involved in the PBC, so.
All right.
There's some people around that I can check to find out.
Let's do that. Then
More importantly, if we can find another retired architect that's looking to do something for the next 20 years.
Well, you need to interview them yourself, so at least their resumes. So you know what they're capable of, because architects are like doctors. They're come at all sorts of levels, basically, and have abilities basically that vary with experience, of course.
Well, Kasumi, aren't you an architect or are you interior or?
No, I'm an interior, so I do work with architects, so I kind of know stuff, but I'm more
Interior.
Yeah, interior, like commercial and residential interior.
Okay. All right. Well, Chip, have those conversations and, certainly a letter.
We should all think about it, who we
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I think
have to be-
also for the balance of the group, I think to some degree, we've been balanced all along, although once in a while we get short of lawyers, so I think for the balance, and this goes throughout a number of years, basically, being on the board, particularly in the latter years, we've become more balanced. And the experience of different members has an effect on each one of us, even to the point where we're learning. Greg and I will basically have different opinions, but I think we learn from each other as to, why something, or even to the fact that from a different point of view, you question why, and you start to think, yeah, why, So balance is important. Maybe our town councils wouldn't think so, but quite frankly, it's been working pretty well. Why screw it up? If we have the opportunity to have any sort of say in it.
Okay. That's what I had. And also, obviously, we got to find a night to honor Jim and maybe try to find some some past members of the board that have been with him for during that 21-year tenure.
Yeah, well, make sure they don't bring raisins to throw at me.
So we'll work on that, Jim. So we're not done with you yet.
That depends on whether I show up.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, we also have to approve the minutes.
yeah. Motion to approve the minutes of November 15th.
So moved.
Second.
Can be a voice vote on the minutes. All in favor?
Yay.
Yeah.
Any against? No,
Yay.
none. All right, that's what I had. Does anyone else want to offer anything under other?
I wish
Yeah.
everybody a very, very happy holiday season.
Yes,
Now,
Yes.
Yes.
Tell you.
happy
Merry Christmas.
holidays.
Happy
And,
holidays.
and
to
in
all.
January, or maybe we can email, try to figure out a date to get together after the holidays. We need to check with Gail. She's usually the one that tries to skip out on us, so.
Yeah, she needs to make up
I
for a
know.
few.
I know,
No, the last two excuses haven't been real good. So.
No, we got to give it to Gail. I was down there today. The place is a madhouse, you know,
Oh,
there's a
I
ton
know.
going on. So thanks for everything, Gail.
Oh, please. Merry Christmas,
Merry
everyone.
Christmas.
Merry
See you
Christmas.
guys. Good night.
Good night.
Be well.
See ya.
Thank you.